But radio technology has drastically changed in the last decade with the introduction of the internet radio.
There it is, violence at NBC, GE.com. I mean...
Well, Allison should know.
What is internet
Allison?
anyway?
There's Allison. Can you explain what internet is?
Wait, how does one... What do you write to it like mail?
Just what is this main artery of the information superhighway?
Yeah, man, I'll tell you what, that dang old internet, man, you just go on there and point and click, get in there, talk about www.com, and you got them naked chicks on there, man. You go click, 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 click. It's real easy, man.
Facebook, we're live!
RACE22 Radio. Welcome to RACE22 Radio with host Langley Austin featuring Roger Johnson.
It don't matter if you win by an inch or a mile. Winning's winning.
And crazy Corey Latham.
I've been watching NASCAR and drinking beer.
RACE22 Radio, your #1 source, covering all your favorite late model stock car racing action. And now it's time to crank it up.
All right, guys, I guess we're back. Been teasing it for a while, been talking about it for 8 years, and I guess we're back on the air. Of course, as the opener said, I'm joined here by Roger Johnson and Corey Latham. Good to have you guys on the show.
Yeah, I've heard the promo and it's already went bad.
I thought it was pretty good.
So, you know.
I mean, it sounded just like you saying that.
We got some things we got to change here.
He was completely floored by the promo. That was great. Never heard it before. Boom, right in the face. Right.
Did that not sound right to you?
No.
What was wrong?
We'll talk about it later.
I mean,
we'll talk about it
later. Do you
later.
sit and drink beer and watch NASCAR races?
No.
You don't?
I don't watch NASCAR.
Well, we didn't say cup races. All these tracks we go to are NASCAR sanctioned. Roger, what have you been up to, man?
Hanging out, living the dream.
I hear you, man. This shop here, we're live from the PRW Chassis Studios at Performance Center Racing Warehouse in Statesville, North Carolina, and this place is packed. I mean, other than you got one guy that works here, and I don't know about any of the rest.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure that guy gets tied up in a corner somewhere after we leave. No, he just stays there all night.
We got an employee of the month deal going.
Oh, so if they're the employee of the month, they got to stay late.
Yeah, he's in. He's been working hard. He's a good kid.
That's pretty jacked up. Well, we haven't been on the air for 8 years.
8 years.
So from 2011, August or September, whatever it was, until now, here we are back.
Long?
Yeah.
Yes, it's been that long.
Look how much we've grown.
Wow.
We're all grown up.
Wow. I've grown out, and y'all grown up. So, I mean, that's how it goes, I guess.
Yeah,
but
for the win.
Gonna have Josh Berry here with us live in the house here at Performance Center Racing Warehouse here in the next little bit. He has not arrived yet, but we're not expecting to have him on until after 7:30 anyways. Man, it's good to be back. Really good to be back.
Yeah, it's good to be able to talk about racing again.
I mean, Corey hasn't thrown me under the bus once yet for not having RACE22 Radio for the last 8 years.
Right.
I mean, and he did about once a week before this. Okay.
He'll get there.
Every time I talk to him, we're bringing that damn radio back.
I think he's getting over the shock of the intro. The intro's
he
got
still
him
is not over that.
Right? Look at him. You can see he went like 8 shades of red. Yeah, he was starting to get crazy.
And Josh Berry just walked into the house here.
Cruised in, big Red Bull.
He's coming
burning the midnight oil.
Absolutely. We'll get him on here in just a minute, but just wanted to get back in the swing of things here. Make sure we sound good. Hopefully you guys can hear us out there. We've got somebody monitoring our social media, where we're live on Facebook, so you guys can chime in, let us know if there's something that doesn't sound right or whatever. We know how it goes. It's first show, and we don't want too many hiccups, but whatever. So.
Yeah, Mike Bush. Besides Roger, it's a good thing we can't see them. No video. It's audio only today.
Yeah, audio only.
Yeah, audio only today. No video.
I have a face for radio.
Well, although we will have some video clips up later, I believe. So
yeah,
got my wife Kim working on that. Hopefully, she still knows
the brains
how to
of the operation.
Yeah.
The first comment I see is just sitting in to see how far off the rails this goes.
Well, let me go ahead and tell you.
Tim, our guy up in Washington State.
Well, Tim, glad you're listening. I knew you would be.
Yeah,
but
the pre-show you should have been involved in.
The pre-show was spectacular.
Yeah.
It was good.
It escalated quickly.
Corey showing us photos of home wreckers and everything else there. So,
wow.
it was interesting.
It was on Facebook. You didn't have anything to do with
it.
No,
it wasn't mine. It was
it was somebody else. Let's be clear.
Yeah.
Corey had his home wrecked, but we can't discuss that on air.
Wow.
Anyways.
Wow. Well.
Anyways.
To answer his question, 5 minutes and 15 seconds before it completely went off the rail, just so you can respond back.
We're going to keep it mostly on the rails tonight, Tim, because Corey has not had any beer, and we're really kind of confused as to what's going to go on here tonight because of that.
No, I think it's going to be great.
Yeah, it'll be good.
I'm interested to
we're going to build a bar in here.
Get myself all worked up.
We'll have it going on later on.
We got to get a bar built in here, and bartenders, everything.
Yeah.
I mean,
might as well put a stripper pole up in the corner and get it on.
We're going in the right direction. Josh looking around to see which pole we're going to be using.
Yeah. He's a very committed man. He was not doing that. Let's not get him in trouble.
Yeah. I'm sure that will not go good at all whatsoever.
Yeah. Right.
Anyways, got a lot of topics to talk about tonight, of course. When we have Josh on here in a few minutes, we'll talk to him. Got some fan questions, and if you have any questions for Josh, be sure to add them on our social media, and one of us will figure out a way to look at it and check it out and try to ask him a question. But also, got a lot of things going on in short track racing. Man, been off for 8 years, but I think we should probably start somewhere toward the end of last year instead of trying to go over the last 8 years. What do you think?
Yeah. But let's start with something good.
Coming from you,
I know here we go.
The pre-show already went way out there.
No, I know, but that's what I'm saying. We should start with something good.
We got to talk to Josh at some point in the night.
No, it's fine. Let's start with something good, meaning a positive.
Okay.
A positive, not a negative. That's what I meant. Let's start with a positive thing that's spinning well.
Okay.
Go ahead, start it.
Wait, is there crickets everywhere?
No, man, we're just...
Like nobody's got one good thing?
Listening to you all the time, the stuff that comes out of your mouth, I don't know what the hell's going to happen.
Well, there's got to be something that was positive out of your year. What was positive?
Positive?
Yeah.
Man.
What do you think was... What was your best video clip or your best post for RACE22 that went close to going viral?
Well, I'm going to talk to Josh about one of them.
Sure.
So we'll leave that off.
Sure. Yeah, but listen, the Lynn Carroll deal was tough for me to beat.
I
got to tell you, if you haven't checked it out, you need to go to RACE22's Facebook page. The Lynn Carroll meme.
And I think that was positive, wasn't it?
That was awesome. Listen, that was unbelievably awesome, in my opinion.
The whole press conference was really good.
That press conference was epic, man.
Yes.
It really was. Yeah. It was.
I'm done here.
Yeah.
Yeah. I didn't mean to run him off. I really did.
That's what, a lot of times, that's what I do. You know what I mean? Like a guy's in there trying to get a car. I'm just like, I'm leaving. I don't care what the customer thinks. We're out of here.
You got a hard job.
Right.
You got a very hard job.
But he does catch somehow. You got to think about it on that side, too. He's stuck in a bad position there. It's just that's taking a knife to a gunfight. He doesn't get a chance to kind of lay his groundwork for the whole year or do anything like that. So it's hard for him to come in.
Are you going to force me to throw him under the bus?
No, I'm not going to force you.
Sit over here and talk good. Dude, we got all damn season to set rules, okay? He went to South Boston and he went to Langley, so let's get real. He's got an opportunity. I know you want to stay positive, so I'll stay as positive as I can, but he's got an opportunity to set his rules. I realize it's not the same racetrack, but at the end of the day, let's
have we just flipped the script here between y'all two?
Well, no, I just
he forced me. He forced me. I didn't want to, but he forced me.
All I'm saying is I think that post was amazing.
I don't. Here's the thing: people will go, "Oh man, that's cool," and that's all this, and yeah, it is kind of cool sometimes, to look back at it. But at the end of the day, our job is to make people aware of what's going on, and to try and have things get better.
Right.
That's our ultimate goal.
Right.
People think that we cover controversy because that's all we cover. Well, we do hundreds of stories a year that are good that nobody ever talks about.
Sure.
So you guys drive this, but at the end of the day, it's just like the rules thing. The whole rules stuff. We're just trying to make sure that everybody's aware. Some of the racetrack operators want to keep it a secret. Well, some of them don't.
Yeah, but
they call me.
And that's
the end of the day.
That's what I want this show to do more than anything is let's just expose some of the reasons why some of this stuff is happening. And I think, we get a guy like Josh, or we get some other guys that are influential in the sport, and I don't want to put them on blast because I don't think that's the right thing to do either.
But Josh is smart enough not to say certain
100%.
things.
100%. I mean, he's a businessman. He knows what he's doing.
Him and Lee Pulliam have the same approach.
Correct.
Okay?
I don't have any problem with that. I would like people that maybe Josh doesn't directly get to talk to, or he can't. I mean, he's trying to race. He's trying to do all these things that he doesn't get a chance to communicate with. Maybe that's a win, right? Like, I'm all for, hey, a guy that's been doing this as long as he's been doing it and been doing the things that he's been doing, how do we not come up to him and say, hey, man, how do we make this better? What are your thoughts on doing this? How do we – and not in a way that lets him have any advantage. That's the problem, because that's the next thing the racer will say. Well, now he's getting to call his own shot. Well, it's not about him calling his own shot. I think he's earned the spot to be able to call him his own shot. You're not going to Hickory and getting somebody from the back gate, not that I'm talking anything bad about them, but getting them to write the late model stock car rules, or getting them to officiate a late model stock car race.
I've been saying drivers should have more input on it. There should be some way to have more driver input than have secret meetings all the time and doing this and that or whatever. And the guys who aren't in the show know nothing about anything.
The only thing I can't figure out is where at what point did we, as a group or a sport, or NASCAR as a sanctioning body, get away from this being a business? Because at some point, it's got to be a show, right?
It's a business, but everybody's in business for themselves.
Exactly right.
That's the problem.
But what I'm saying is, if NASCAR's a business, how do you not address the customer base?
I understand what you're saying. Yeah.
I mean, where have you seen them involved?
That's what we were talking about earlier. I don't think it matters.
And I don't want to throw off on them. I mean, because
I don't either. But I don't think it matters.
There was a time when they were highly involved in when rule book and things were right, and now they're not as involved, and they're still trying to write the rule book, and I think that's where things have went haywire. You know what I mean? That, and I think they listen to the wrong people sometimes. I think some of these tracks. I mean, I was going to save this for later, but talking about the spindles, and I want to ask Josh what he thinks about it when we get him on, but the spindle deal, only a few teams have them. A handful of teams. I couldn't tell you an exact number. But the racetracks were like, well, they're already out there, so we're just going to keep them, leave them out there. We'll just let them go. Well, we might as well just go ahead and add that rule. Well, several of the racetracks stood up against that, and I believe that's why we ended up without that rule.
Yeah, but this has happened every time. This is no new concept.
No, it's not new.
This is the same difference as we're going to outlaw 16-inch springs at this place, and then we're going to let 16-inch springs run here, and then we're not going to do this, and we're going to do this. The problem is, like, I don't understand. The one thing I can actually say about little kids racing that is successful, right? Let's go down to a smaller level, whether it be go-karts, quarter midgets, blah, 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 legends cars. The rules,
you can show up anywhere.
You can at least race. And what I don't understand is, I don't know if it's promotership or I don't know who it is, but we've microed it all down into these little niches where you can only be a Hickory guy, or you can only be a Cars Tour guy, or you can only be a Greenville guy. Well, that's a problem.
Yeah.
There's not enough cars to service all of these racetracks.
I hear it all year long. People say, I can't afford to go there because I can't afford to change everything on my car.
Right.
Right. I mean, just like Ace. And, I mean, I'm not throwing them under the bus because, I mean, after Martinsville, it kind of looked like the right decision for them not to have the Harrington. But I mean, them being different and having, rules without the Harrington engine. I mean, it just doesn't make any sense. Everybody's got to be on the same page. Yeah. Whether they believe in it or not, you've got to get on the same page and move forward.
I like a lot of things he's doing over there, though. I do like he's working hard. He's promoting a social. He's grinding. He's grinding. He's trying to parlay it with some of his other businesses. How do you not give him a shout out for what he's doing?
And when you look at the drivers that go from track to track,
I don't know if your mic's on there.
Yeah, it's on.
Oh,
I'm good.
All right.
That want to go track to track to get points for the national championship, what you guys talking about, that's kind of going against their own program, isn't it? By having tracks that's got different rules, making it harder for
nobody even
drivers
does that anymore.
Right.
I mean, very few.
And that's what I think it's kind of happened. It's kind of just run it in the ground. It's feasted on itself, and I mean.
In fairness, I do think they're moving in the right direction by narrowing down the engine selection.
Yes.
We'll be narrowed down to 3 next year.
Well, I mean, we're only 7 motors to get to this 3 group of what we essentially had before.
But, I mean, we're in the same boat.
Like a Chevy crate, a Ford crate.
We're in the same boat with the limiteds now, though. The limiteds have like 17 engine combinations. It's insane.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't understand.
It's going to be helpful.
So we're going in the same direction there. So.
Right, because we should repeat it that it didn't work.
Speaking of limiteds,
that's what I do. I'm like, oh, that didn't work. I should do it again.
That's what we usually do. Speaking of limiteds, you know, Greenville Pickens just announced their 10,000 to win limited race on Saturday, March the 2nd. I know you guys, kind of have a little bit of mixed feelings about that race and what, paying big bucks, does for limited races. I mean, in my opinion, as long as they're limiteds only and we're not just having guys drop back, I'm okay with it. But, I think that's what it creates. It creates guys dropping back.
Guys don't do that anymore. Not really.
You can't afford to.
No, there's no Lee Pullman going, well, I'm going to win $10,000. He could care less about that. He's not going to do that.
But you don't have to have a Lee Pullman or a Josh Berry or a Philip Morris drop back for it to be a Scott Riggs. I mean, not Scott, Lane Riggs dropping back.
Either way,
winning the 15th.
I would actually think that Lane would take Scott down. I just want to go on radio saying that. They're both my friends, so I'd like to go on the radio saying I think Lane might have him. I've seen them both drive up close and personal. I think the kid's got him.
Yeah, well, we'll let you go with that. Anyway, but like him dropping back and going and winning that race at Carteret. So I mean, while it's not a bad thing, but I don't even know who finished second, so that's really bad. But whoever finished second, they got, they essentially just had a late model guy with.
Yeah, but they're racers.
A lot of money.
Yeah,
Drop back and take their money.
Yeah, but I don't think they got a lot of money. Isn't that what you're saying?
I'm not saying that they're an unlimited budget or anything.
No, years
but
ago,
compared to a limited guy, they are.
Years ago, the Southeast Tour, Mac Little was going to run in Southeast Tour. Ed Cox said you couldn't run it because you've won late model race.
Sure.
He said, why are you going to penalize me? I can't afford to run late model anymore. I'm running limited. He said, what if Kyle Busch showed up? I'll never forget. He said, he's got to pass tech and win just like I do. I mean, you still got to drive the car. I understand you say equipment and all that, but
yeah, sure.
I don't think it's that.
The only thing I can't figure out is, I applaud Anthony for putting this thing on down there.
Anytime a guy's putting up money, it's got to be good in some ways. Sure.
He's trying. He's trying.
Right. I didn't necessarily like this. We talked about this a little bit earlier. I didn't necessarily love the 6-tire rule.
Yeah.
For the sport of it. I know he's got to make his gate too, right? And he's runs into all kind of struggles down there with them people in the management and
just for the record, every time you say, we talked about this earlier, it scares me to death because of the things we talked about earlier.
Okay. Well, it's all right.
I mean, I ain't going to lie.
I don't know. I think Anthony is good at running a racetrack, but it's just about how much time everybody can take to focus to it. People got to feed their families too.
Anthony had the 4 years that he's run the racetrack, he's had a really hard time because he tried to take his guys from his team and make staff out of them at the racetrack, which I think is, fine being loyal to your people. But I think at the end of the day, I think he found out that setup just didn't work, and I think he's going about it totally different this time. He's hired that Rick Hunter to be the head tech guy this year, and I guess he's, from some of the upper series that he's done tech for. So, I don't know enough about him to know, but I know that, so, I mean, I think he's going about it in a different way. I understand that he's going to be hiring a person to actually run the racetrack, which he hasn't done before. So I think that's important because it takes, Anthony is a very busy guy.
Sure.
I mean, if you try to get
That's
a hold,
what I mean.
If he's not in a deer stand somewhere, you probably ain't gonna get him on the phone.
Sure.
I mean, it's just not gonna happen. So, I mean, I think him having a guy, there to run the racetrack, and I think him having a guy there to do tech is going to be a big difference for them.
Yeah, big shout out to Fats, though. Fats did a lot of work down there. I like to see him in Greenville. He's got a good hustle.
He's a good dude.
Yep.
Really good dude. But, Anthony being back there I think is great, and I think that, he's going in the right direction, and I think if this limited race, I think it's a good thing. I mean, we can present the bad, but at the end of the day, I still think it's a good thing.
I'm appreciative to Anthony. I don't think people think about it this much, but think about the money that Anthony had to invest of his own to try to stir that on. I mean, this guy's got successful businesses, and I'm not trying to praise him overly either, but I don't think people sometimes understand the commitment from not only the time side, but from the financial side that he's willing to put forth to hopefully gain, right? To hopefully gain. I'm not saying to lose, but
it's not like four sponsors coming in out of the blue saying, "Hey, here's a bunch of money. Do this.
Here's $200K. Go do this thing." It doesn't work like that.
Well, you know, as much money as he's spending running the racetrack, he could have probably bought himself 4 more national titles. Okay, so let's just be honest here.
Wow.
I mean, it's the truth. Anthony will not take offense to me saying that at all whatsoever.
No,
we have very interesting conversations. So but
he's a realist.
Absolutely,
I mean,
absolutely.
He's good for the sport down there. I hope he can get that thing going like it was. I really appreciated what he did there for a while.
I just keep thinking about Keith Rocco talking.
Yeah. Hey, I found that video the other day. I got to repost it.
We talked about that the other day.
Yeah.
That's the greatest speech ever.
That was a good clip.
Good. It was really, really good. You know, other things going on. I want to mention Mark Rogers asked, has anybody heard from Lynn Carroll since Martinsville? And I'll just go ahead and tell you.
You saw him at Walmart, didn't you?
I did see him at Walmart in Salem, Virginia.
How'd that go?
Right before Christmas. Needless to say, we kind of run into each other there, and he kept walking. I said hi, he said hi, but he was
he did say
steady
hello.
moving as he said. So
well done.
So.
Well done.
Awesome. But you know,
was he in the hunting section?
Well, he was in his hunting clothes.
Nice.
He was in camo.
Right.
So, yeah. And that's probably what he'd been doing all day.
Nice.
I would assume. I don't really know. Of course, other things going on. You know, heading into 2019, Motor Mile Speedway's back. You know, open. They open their season Saturday, April 27th, which I think is great because it's late. It gives us a chance for everybody to kind of get going, and then them kind of come in. And
sure.
you know, if somebody's already out of the points championship at South Boston or Hickory or somewhere else, they go, hey, let's try to go up here and run for it. So I think that's good. Among those changes, you know, they've altered their purse, altered their grandstand admission. I don't know that they've made that public, so I don't want to, you know, put that out there for them because I know way too much. But they're going to be doing some really good things in that department, and they got a 10-race schedule that goes until September the 7th. Unfortunately, one of the unfortunate things about that is 7 of their 10 races goes directly head-to-head with South Boston, which I think is unfortunate.
I do too.
There's a lot of Saturdays that they go head-to-head. I believe it's 7. I think that's what I counted, but. You know, so that's a lot. I think that's unfortunate because I think both of those tracks could have really fed off.
Maybe there's a reason, though. Hold on. Maybe we don't know.
Well, there is a reason. The reason is that they also own the baseball team there, the Pulaski Yankees, and they're attempting to use staff from one to the other so they're, you know, putting the schedule to where they don't conflict. Which I think is fine. I mean, obviously it's their business; they have to make those decisions.
Yeah.
But you know, it would have been a whole lot better if they could have stayed off those dates. But I think, you know, with the program that they put together, I think it'll help, you know, a whole lot. So we'll see. We'll see what happens.
I'm intrigued to see how that works out.
One of the biggest things, and we talked about it a little bit ago, but coolers. They have never allowed coolers there since they've owned the racetrack, and this year they are allowing coolers. And of course, you know, the whole premise behind that, you know, was all the fans said, "Oh man, you know, we're coming back if you let us bring a cooler." And you know, we're yet to see if that's going to happen. I'm sure you guys have got some opinions too.
They had free admission one year, free. Just drive your car up, get out, walk in the gate.
Yep.
There's just different things you got to do at a track. I mean, it's just say you could do this. I mean, I think it's going to take a little bit more. Just more marketing.
Well, I think they're putting that in there.
Are they doing
have
that?
plans to do a whole lot more stuff. So I will give them, you know, extreme credit.
As long as people just know about it.
Right. I just hope that we're actually only $22 because that's all I can figure that you can fit in one of those little coolers that you can bring in. So we're $22 away from getting a family to come to the racetrack. I doubt it.
No.
I doubt it.
But hey, each family member can bring in one, so we're you know,
I understand
$88.
That, are we really like a?
I've been to racetracks that allow beer, and not everybody. There's not hammered in the stands drinking beer. It's not that big a deal.
That's why I'm having such a hard time with that being the save all. I'm not saying it won't help. I'm not saying it won't help. But I think it's hard.
I think it will help.
I do. I think it will.
Yeah, it's not going to hurt.
But it's not the win, I don't think. I don't think that wasn't. I got to tell you that I feel a little let down. That wasn't the win that I thought it was going to get from them. Yeah. I thought there would be something anticlimactic, I guess.
And to be honest with you, they haven't really ramped up their marketing yet, so we don't know.
No, they just gave a few details. 100%. That's just one of the little details
here
and there, you know. Yeah.
And I'm not trying to put them down. Listen, I applaud them because they're willing to take a financial hit to let people bring their own coolers in, which it is going to happen. So I applaud them at how much they can squeeze the dollar there.
Sure.
There's got to be some swings. There has to, at some point, in my opinion, the racer or the race fan, depending which one is your customer, is going to have to win. And I don't mean win races, but I mean they're going to have to go sit in the stands, see something that brings them joy, that they go back to work, and Monday through Thursday, they can't wait to see that same thing over.
Yep.
And if we can get that, then we got them. And if not, then we're in trouble.
Yeah.
I agree totally. Well, anyways, I guess we're going to have Josh Berry come over and join us and sit down, and we'll pick his brain about all the great things going on in short track racing here.
I got some good ones for him.
I know you do. So, going to be an interesting conversation, but we welcome Josh Berry to the show.
Thank you guys for having me.
Yeah, man.
Can you hear me good?
Yeah, I got you.
Yeah, man, we can hear you. You're the first guy to say, hey, man, I want to be on the show, so you're the first guy on the show. You know, that's.
Pumped
I mean,
about it.
well, I will say Nick Payne said that he wanted to be on the show, but we was afraid Greg Marlowe would show up and beat him. Okay, so we didn't want to have him on the show. So I'm sure Nick's listening somewhere and not real thrilled about
never
that.
going to live that down.
No, he's not. He gets mad every time I mention him.
Yeah.
So, anyways, man, like I said, it's great to have you on here, and you know. One of the things that, you know, we want to talk to every one of our guests about is, you know, what you guys have planned for the season, because, you know, you guys don't really necessarily put out, you know, anything, you know, talking about what you're going to do for the season. So we don't really have any insight other than assuming. So go ahead and tell us, you know, what you got planned for this season.
Right now our plan is I'm going to run the full Cars Tour schedule, and as well as more than likely Martinsville and probably Myrtle Beach. I'm probably scaling back a little bit over what I have the past couple years, just because we're lacking a little bit on the funding side, and we're just kind of going a little bit different direction with that. But we're still going to do a lot of racing. We still have another young kid from California, Adam Lemke, that's going to drive 20 races for us, and we're probably going to have a couple other drivers here and there once it's all said and done. But you know, it's just how it is nowadays. It's so tough to find funding. I mean, you see that on anything, and luckily we have a really good partner with All Things Automotive that has, you know, been a part of our Cars Tour program last year and again this year. But outside of that, we're probably not going to race a whole lot.
Gotcha. Well, that's not good for the fans, but you know.
Yeah, I mean it's part of it, but you know, in the end, it's like I said, you gotta, you know, at the same time, it's, I mean, listening to you guys talk, I mean, it's hard to go race other places nowadays too. So I mean, at the same time, I mean, it's a
sure.
I mean, you look at it. I mean,
from a financial basis, it's tough.
I mean, yeah, that, and just like you said, the rules and everything that goes on with it. I mean, it's just not easy. I mean, you were already alluding to it early on, that it's just not easy to just go run. You know, that's what the Cars Tour provides. You have a series with the same rules and the same people every week, and you can go to different tracks.
I think that's their hook. I'll be really honest with you. I think that's the best thing that they do, and I mean that. I think that they at least have some consistency with the fact of, I'm not going to say calls or judging or whatever else, but you know the pit pass is going to be X. It's going to be here at this date. Yep. It's not changing. If it does change, they are doing everything that they can to fit it, because they understand that everybody's making a travel
just like
from
you
here.
said, though. Why don't everybody else say yeah?
Because that's not how we work, right? Like we don't work that we see.
That's what we need to do.
Correct, and that's why I think we needed to do this. I think we need to do this because, and people may hate us when we're done, and that's okay. But all I don't understand is how do we were talking about this off air a little bit ago. We have 15,000 people at Bowman Gray Stadium. And I've talked to 3 promoters in the last 2 days. Langley's been involved in one of them. And some people say, well, I don't want to race like that. Well, that's cool. I don't necessarily want to race like that either. But if that's what the customer wants, be it the fan that can bring the money to even a guy with high profile like you, how is that not what we're after? I don't want you down there beating your heads in. You know what I mean? I don't necessarily need to see a WWF match in it.
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, one thing that I've always thought ever since, because I grew up racing in Tennessee at Nashville Fairgrounds. That's kind of where I watched races. And then moving out here, I think one of the biggest differences I feel like is just the lack of support divisions. You know, I mean, I remember when I was younger, 12, 13, 14, 15 years old watching races. I mean, you had races on the quarter mile at Nashville. You had them on the 5/8s, and I mean, you had 20 street stocks, 20 pure stocks, 20 front runners, 20 legend cars, and I mean, those were the best races of the night. And around here, there's just nothing really. I mean, like I remember Nashville used to have to run when they went to and it's I haven't been there in a number of years, so I can't really say if it's still successful or not, but I just remember back then.
They still packed the place.
They ran late models before trucks and sportsman cars because everybody would leave for the late model race. And I think that's something that some of the local tracks around here lack. I think because you have your super, the Cars Tour, or even in the past where UARA, you have a late model touring division, and I just think that, I mean, I would like to see Hickory pay a 2,000 win street stock race every week. How many people would build street stocks and bring them out there and beat the hell out of each other?
For sure.
I mean, that's what
I was just at Dillon. They had 50 of them.
I mean,
down
look
there.
at
It was
Bowman
like
Gray.
amazing.
I mean, yeah, the modifieds are all I mean, but still, the other divisions are just as good.
Yeah.
There's just as many rivalries and
I've said
racing in
most
that
tracks
series.
I go to, a mini stock race is the best race of the night.
Mini stocks or street stocks, almost every race.
Almost every track you go to.
Nobody
Pay
wants
them
to
guys
see
and let 'em put on a show.
8
Yeah.
cars. We talked about this earlier a bit, I think maybe before you were here. Nobody wants to see you go over there and there be 8 cars and you completely toy with the field from a half a lap in front of them. And nobody, that's terrible for the sport. It's great for you, and that's what you're supposed to do. That's your job. You're doing it perfect. But as far as I don't know what we got to do to get more people to be more engaged.
Like Langley did. He black flagged leader at Franklin County. If you got the big lead, he'd black flag him.
Tony Hausman, great example. He was leading a U-car race one night, and we had a caution, and I walked out on the track. And I told him, and I'd been telling him, slow down. You know what I mean? He's got a mile lead. Just make it look good. You know what I mean? Don't kill him. You know what I mean? And I told him, I said, hey, man, you got an oil leak. He said, I do? And I said, no, but you're about to. I said, do not leave the field. And he stayed right there with him. Won the race. I mean, you got to have a show. Right. At the end of the day, it's your job to dominate, and it's the promoter's job to make sure you don't dominate. I mean, that's it.
I don't necessarily disagree with that. I think I know that y'all are alluding to Motor Mile. I think that's was one of his problems. I mean, I've been there nights when it goes 150 laps, green flag, and then they go right on their website, colossal victory for Lee Pulliam. He wins by 17 seconds.
Right.
I mean, that's like you said. That's great for Lee. That's great for me. Whatever.
Sure, right. But it's not good for the whole,
who's
right?
going to come watch that?
Right,
no,
right.
I mean, to me, I think that's really was one of the bigger problems with them was just. And it's just the fact that Phillip and Lee are so good there. And then that's what's kind of hurt it.
It's always somebody there.
Yeah.
Somebody always dominates and really kills the field. And that's I do think that they've made this part public, that there is no qualifying at Motor Mile.
I've heard rumors.
And
I heard
that you
rumors.
draw for
Well,
positions.
they draw numbers?
Yep, you draw for positions every race.
That's
So,
awesome.
And I agree. It's totally. They are some of the changes that they're making, and I don't want to let all the cats out of the bag because I don't know that they have, because I don't know what's public and what's not. But some of the things that they're doing is good for the racing. Like you going to Hickory and starting in the back. I don't know, bonus money or whatever it was. I mean, that was awesome. Even though, I mean, you killed them, but at the end of the day, at least they got to see some passing on the way. Got to have that. We've got to have passing.
We're trying.
And I do think that some places are trying. I will tell you one racetrack that I am thoroughly impressed with how the racing's been, and that's South Boston. I mean, that place, I went there technically 4 times I showed up. I went to Ace for the Cars Tour race and then left as soon as the checkered flag flew and got to the last 40 or 50 laps of the second twin, and those races were awesome. They're side by side almost every lap. I don't know if it's the F50 tire. I don't know if it's their 2-tire rule. I don't know what it is, but the racing there was spectacular. Hey, you didn't run up there any this past year, did you?
Just the tour race.
Yeah.
I think it's that tire, and then the pavement's finally coming in now from when they paved it a few years ago, whenever.
The racing's spectacular.
Yeah, I mean, it was repaved, and then now the bottom grooves ran on enough that it's actually losing grip. So, like in our race, the groove just kept going higher and higher as it cleaned off.
Make speed.
I mean, that's the biggest thing with a lot of the tracks around here. I mean, even like Hickory. I mean, Hickory's a multi-groove racetrack, but it's never clean enough to race on it.
Right.
I mean, that's why, like, if you ever go to a tour race or a pass race or something, like, watch the last 50 laps, the groove's wider and wider and wider and wider. I mean, that's because it's finally clean enough that you can go there. For a normal show, it's just not. I mean, you can't. Yeah. I mean, it's just too dirty to run on there. And I think, obviously they a nice facility and it's
for sure.
In. I think I don't know how I feel about the harder tire thing, but with all this talk about cost, I mean, I would say the number one, even for us, when we look at what we spend for a year, tires is the one that always you just
100%.
say, holy cow, we spent that much on tires. So, I mean, anything you can do to bring the tire cost down, I think, is going to be a plus, and if the racing's good, then it works.
Do you know how much you spent on tires last year?
No, I don't. I'm not. I don't ask those questions.
That would be an interesting number to know.
I really don't know that. I really didn't.
Be an interesting number.
Yes, it would. I mean,
hey, to his defense, though, and I've always known this. People think Josh Berry drives for Junior Motorsports, whatever. It ain't like you think. Trust me on that. He's got the same 5 guys he's had for the past 10 years, and they work on the car all the time. They know what they're doing. They're just like anybody else. There's 6 or 7 more teams that's spending way more money than he is.
That's something that I really told Langley that I wanted to do. I want him to tell us his normal day or normal week. I get a chance to be in front of so many young people that are 13, 15, 17, adults, whatever, that are involved in racing, and they call me and they want to know, hey, well, man, I just unrolled my car. It's now Thursday, and I'm not saying you got to unroll your car on Monday. It makes you win races, but I just rolled out.
It helps
on Thursday, and it's 8:30. Can you give me some springs to put on this thing? And I think to myself, I wish you know how beaten you already are. Yeah. Because you have no idea how hard guys like you, guys like Lee Pulliam, Chad McCumbee comes to mind down there, and how hard them guys are going already. They've beaten you. Yeah. I mean, as long as something doesn't happen, you're 10th on back to them, because there's a reason those guys continue to win over and over. So that's one thing that I want to do. I want to bring more people that don't know you, Josh, or don't know whoever. I want them to know how much you grind during the week, because they only see man, he's walking around with his JR2 stuff on. We're doing this up, and it's not it. That's not the grind. That's not the real life of what this is.
Yeah, I mean, been in a very fortunate position, especially the last 4 or 5 years, that I work for the Lakeville team.
Sure.
We have a couple other employees along with myself. So basically, we have 3 cars working on a 4-car.
Pull your mic up to you there a little bit.
Is that a little better?
Yeah.
Yep.
We have 3 cars working on a 4th car. And basically, throughout the season, my job is pretty much, aside from the development part of it with our other driver, is to maintenance and work on my own race car.
Yeah, see, and that's something I want people to know. I think people think, oh, he just shows up with his helmet and goes out there.
At Myrtle Beach, there was a crowd. They
happening.
changed the motor. Was that the fastest motor change y'all ever done in your life?
The one at
Myrtle Beach.
Wake County was.
Yeah, Wake County.
Oh, it was Wake County? Because I had other drivers that was like, I've never seen nothing like this in my life.
That was.
They got practice.
I mean, now I think that was one time that I can really remember of people up to me and being like, wow, like I never knew that you could, go under there and.
But it's the same thing over and over. If you look at the guys, most of them that dominate through the deal, they follow kind of a certain path. There's not many. I know this will annoy a lot of people also, but there's not tons of kids just rolling in there with their helmet bag and just pounding everybody's eyes closed. And I think everybody gets confused about that. I think we're in this deal where you can buy it, you can buy it, you can buy it. Well, great. I mean, Jay and I get our tubing.
I could buy it.
Right. Jay Hedgecock and I get our tubing at the exact same place.
Yeah.
Right. It's not. I just don't understand why there's a work ethic that has to happen. So that's what I want you to. You know what I mean?
This level of racing is the most competitive, I think.
I agree.
Versus, especially, maybe not Cup, maybe not Xfinity, but this is the most competitive. I think that's why you see, aside from their age, a lot of these younger drivers come in and this is maybe like their first real, shot
Taste
at running
of it.
something.
Yep.
But it's hard to win because everywhere you go. I tell these kids that drive for us, I tell Sam, Anthony, all of them that have drove for us, that you're racing the local heroes everywhere you go. You're not going to roll into South Boston and kick Philip Morris's ass.
You're not doing
It's
that.
not gonna happen,
You're not
you
doing
know?
it. No.
So but when it
Philip
comes to
Morris 6-7 years ago went to Ace Speedway trying to win the national championship. Asked me to
yeah.
drive one of his cars. He finished about 6th.
That was embarrassing.
He finished about 6th, both races,
it's tough,
because they're
no
locals.
matter where you go.
Yeah.
I mean, it's so. I mean, in the preparation part of it, I mean, it's even this is. I feel like even changed so much, of course, that I've known, and I mean, I can't operate like that. I mean, I like Monday, my car is clean.
Sure.
You know, you're moving on. You got to make a plan. And I mean, now it's almost getting to the point, even with us, like we've been together so long that, and we all know each other so well and work together so well that I mean, we're working a month in advance.
Sure.
You know, I mean, we're like our car is 95% ready to go to Southern National for the first Cars Tour race, and it's a month. But we're working on Orange County. What are we going to do for that big race, the 30? You know, so I mean, it's without a doubt. I mean, you got to be prepared, and it's so, you know, it's different game than it was 20 years ago.
Yeah.
During race season, what is a typical day for you? What time do you get up? What time do you go to work? What do you do during the day? Kind of explain that to us.
I get up about 7 and then get to work at 8 and work.
You at 7 at night?
Yeah.
I've never seen 7 in the morning.
Yeah.
There's one
7
of them?
in the morning.
Yeah, there's 2 of them
work,
twice a day.
I mean,
I don't catch the early one very much.
We typically work 8 to 5 at our shop, and if we got to work later to get stuff done, we'll work later. If we are in good shape, we might leave a little early, but for the most part, that's what we do. I mean, and we obviously clean and repair and maintenance the cars, and I set up my own car, and the other kid, Steven, that just walked in here with some beer, he sets up the 9 car. This year it's going to be a different number, and you know, we have a manager, Brian Schaefer, that works for us, and he keeps us all getting along and on the right track, and that's pretty much how we operate.
Your man brought Zach Bruinger and beer.
Yeah.
I mean, they were bringing a good time with them, weren't they?
You can't get more messed up than that right there.
Well, we were talking about today about what our topics would be, which we've actually already. I'm impressed with even the fact that we didn't go straight to Martinsville, straight to motors, or straight to spindles. So I'm actually enjoying this pretty good that we're talking about that.
Well,
so
we're definitely
going there.
Get there.
I thought about it. I know we'll be there.
One question from the thing online. Let me find it. I just don't know where it went. Matt Cheatham wants to know. You know, we know you're running Martinsville. Are you running the Triple Crown, or are you just running Martinsville?
I'm not. You know, especially with last year, with how well we ran at Martinsville, it kind of has crossed my mind. I think with the situation that we're in, it's probably going to be more of a decision once it gets closer. I think if we have a good start to the year and don't tear up a lot of stuff and you know had a good run, we'll probably try to make those races. But like I said, if we don't have a great start to it, we probably won't be there.
One of the questions from Facebook from earlier is probably the most commonly asked question that you get. Why are you not an Xfinity rider? Why has Junior not put you in an Xfinity ride?
I mean, it's all about funding. I think. I mean, it's like I said earlier. It's so hard to find it, and I mean, the fact of the matter is Dale Jr. has given me a great opportunity in what I do, and he's already. I mean, he changed my life with the opportunity that he gave me to bring me over here to put me in a late model. I mean, I'm working for him. I've been working for him a long time, but he's not my dad. He's not going to spend $4 million for me to go race. If we could get a sponsor to give us $4 million to go run an Xfinity car, and he had to do a couple appearances,
I'm sure
he would do it for me.
100%.
Guaranteed.
But it just hasn't been that easy. You know, we've worked hard to find the opportunities that we've had, and I think, you know, on my side of it, you know, looking back on it, I probably could be, you know, even though us racers love the grassroots, you know, work on your own race car. You know, when it comes to making it, knowing how to work on your own race car isn't gonna do it.
No,
you know,
it's not gonna help you.
I agree.
I mean, I try to tell.
Them days are long gone.
But you're still trying to continue that dream, though, right?
I mean, to a point, but I mean,
you can only do so much.
You can only do so much. I mean, and I'm so set in my ways now. I mean, I love working on my own race car. I love doing all that stuff. So it's so hard that to go, you know, and just. I mean, now it's about pounding down people and trying to build partnerships and get sponsors to keep racing, because the fact of the matter is, as long as you got a sponsor, you're going to race nowadays.
That's exactly right.
Yeah.
You know, I try to tell younger drivers that you know, 10 years ago or whatever, I do wish that if I was more knowledgeable and could have figured out a better way to do that, and I might be be in a better position now. But ultimately, you know, working on my own race car and doing all this stuff is what I had to do to keep the opportunity that I have. So I mean, it's just you just got to weigh it. I mean, how you want to do it, you know.
To kind of staying with the same category there, you run a race for some underfunded team. I can't remember who they were. It doesn't even matter. But, Ross Chastain kind of took that theory and made it work, which I guess he's out of a ride now, but maybe you'll get back in another one. But do you feel like if you would have went that path instead of staying with the late model that you would have went somewhere, or do you think this is better for you?
I don't know. I don't know. I mean, that's a good example because, he still – he was in a smaller ride, but it was still a pretty solid ride.
Yeah.
It's definitely a balance between the two. I think you can't just be out there. You got to be learning something.
Yeah.
I think it definitely would help prepare you, at least seeing the tracks and getting involved in it. And, just being at the racetrack and meeting people and building those relationships, I think, could be a good thing. But it's even Ross, he obviously built a relationship with the DC Solar and talked them into running 3 races. He wins one of them, runs second in one of them, and crashes out of the lead in the other one. But he don't have $4 million. So
it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Right, it doesn't matter.
That doesn't matter.
Right?
Doesn't matter.
I completely agree with that. So my question is for what I think people would be viewership of this show. Talk to the 13, the 14, the go-kart kid, the quarter midget kid. The things that worked for you and didn't work for you through your journey over the last 15 years, 20 years. As you see them coming in to replace you as you're moving up the ladder, what is the advice you would give to them young kids? Because I'm telling you, there's a little wave right here of young guys that are trying to make a push. And they got their families and they have all these people and everybody's trying to grind in the right direction, but I don't think they know a direction to grind in. They're willing to work, but they don't know how to work. They don't know, should they work mostly on, should I watch tons of tape? Should I try to figure out what spring rates are and what a moment ratio is and what an upper A-frame is? Or do I play video games? Because that's an acceptable thing, right? Which 2 generations ago, they would have laughed. 5% of the people at Hickory Sting yesterday have ever been in an iRacing deal, right? And there's legends over there, right? So 1 generation ago, that would have been completely – they would have laughed you out of the – I remember when Shane Meal got the ride – I don't remember what the team it was. It was, I think, the Mike's Hard Lemonade car. And Jerry Kennan told me in the driver's meeting before the IRP race, he's like, you're never going to believe this. This kid had never seen this place before, but he drove it on a video game. And I remember there was all these old crew chiefs standing around, and they all started laughing. And then you know what?
Yeah.
I was like, wow, maybe we should get some video games for our guy because he just blew by us like we didn't have decals on the side. So where do you give them help? Where if you could go back to the 13-year-old version of you and say, hey, okay, I'm into this now. I have a lot more information than people on the outside. I get to see the inner workings of Dale Jr.'s place. I get to see and talk to people. I get to be in the Xfinity garage. I get to. How do they grind it? What's their number one thing they could work on to make themselves better?
I think, and to start off kind of with my journey, like you said, I think the hard part I feel like with what I've had is, 16-year-old me's goal would have been to run a late model.
Yeah.
To run, some runs.
Sure.
I raced a legend car. We had no funding, anything like that, that we would have ever been able to put together a late model or do anything like that. So 16-year-old me was,
happy with that.
When I got, a chance to run the late model. I'm like, holy cow! I never thought in a million years that I was going to get to race a late model. And then quickly after I moved here and become, really it was just about keeping that opportunity, now, and then it's like it sneaks up on you. It's been 4, 5, 6 years, and now I'm 28, and I wish I would have maybe done some things differently that would have possibly helped me get a better opportunity at a higher level. But ultimately, I've still done a really good job for myself. So I think that's it's just a unique situation with me. But for the average racer, I think as if let's just say you're not necessarily really, really concerned about funding at the late model level.
Sure, right. Say you're a limited guy. Let's put it this way. You're a limited guy that bought a car in the middle of last year. He tested, and now he's going to go to Greenville Pickens for this 10,000 to win race. What are some of the things he should be doing every week to help develop himself?
I think the simulators and stuff like that definitely help. I think I felt like your question was a little bit more towards like a younger driver.
Yeah,
you know,
and that's what
maybe
I am.
working with a team.
Yes.
You know what I mean? Something along those lines versus like the Saturday night short tracker. You know what I mean?
Well, I don't know that there is very many Saturday night short trackers that are 13 anymore.
Yeah.
Right? That guy, the Saturday night short tracker, he's 52, and he's just doing it because he's got a good business and he loves the sport, and I applaud him. I completely applaud him. But I just don't think he's the mass anymore. I think he's the minimum, and on that micro scale, I think I don't want to say he's a non-factor because there's a bunch of them guys that can still get it done. I put David Roberts up against anybody. He's the man. You know what I mean? But he's not going cup racing.
Yeah, I think on that level at least, I feel like it would be beneficial, especially with the team that you work with. I mean, these younger kids. I mean, you've got to be involved enough and show enough work ethic to motivate the people that work for you. You know, I mean, that's what I've always tried to believe in. I mean, I've always tried to work hard enough and do a good enough job to make people want to work for me. You know, I mean, that's the big thing, especially for the, you got to be invested. You know, you can't just get out of the car and just go run and sit in the trailer and stare at your phone.
That's why you've had the same guys for 10 years.
I mean, I would say that. You know, I mean, I feel that way. I hope that I hope that I've been able to do that. You know?
I'll tell you, you've done it. You don't have to hope. You've done it. You got a good group over there.
I mean, so, and just, I don't know. I mean, the overall picture of it, I mean, that part of it, I mean, it's really not going to be live or die whether you know what upper to run and all that stuff.
I agree.
But, I mean, you got to be involved enough to make the people want to work for you and make them believe in you. And then, I mean, you really need to, the grind, I think, really nowadays is really turned into finding funding.
I do too.
I
think social is the grind.
I mean, you got to put yourself out there, I think, and kind of go outside of your comfort zone and do some things that some people might laugh at you for. But I mean, you got to get out there and get your name out there to be able to find partners to do this stuff.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Hey, what are some of the things that you've had to do out of your comfort zone to get to this point? You know, share some of those things that you've had to do.
I mean, for me, just even, I mean, I moved here to go work for these guys, and I was 19 years old. You know, I lived with Dale's mom and stepfather for like 2 months. They didn't know me from anybody, you know, and I'm just some dude living in their house.
Right.
You know? I mean, it was
but that's
so
the grind. That's how it used to all work. That's the way it worked.
And I mean, when I first started, I worked at the Xfinity shop during the day, and then we did all the late model stuff at night. I mean, I was the pit practice guy. I glued lug nuts on wheels, had to drive the pit stop car, clean it all. I mean, it was just, I mean, there's a million ways. You just got to do whatever it takes. I mean, that's how bad do you want to do it.
Yeah. I like the way you've done it, though. You were talking about earlier, and I've seen other late model drivers you didn't put all your eggs in one basket. You keep driving the late model and take opportunities as you see them. As we've seen other late model drivers give up their sell everything late model and pay to drive 3 races in a starting park, you know. I just don't see how that's fun, and you know, I think what you've done has been your best way.
In my opinion, that's giving up.
Yeah, I can't stand that.
That's when you get to that point, I think you've just made the decision. We're going to push all in here, and we're going to try to make a run. And
but you never did that. I mean, you drove the late model and took an opportunity. Oh, here's an opportunity. I'll take it as it'll come, but I'm not going to quit doing what I'm doing. You know?
I mean, it was really an easy decision just because I've just loved short track racing and I mean, I think so much. I mean, I think that all these racetracks are just so competitive and it's so hard to win on these, and that I've really enjoyed it. I mean, I've enjoyed that way more than going and running 35th in an Xfinity race.
Yeah, sure.
And I mean, it's so really for me, it's a no-brainer.
Gotcha.
How much do you think the culture plays into it? Because this is like its own little ecosystem, right? So you moved here, you didn't know tons of people. You got
his brain's like this big. I mean,
I'm serious.
It's like leaking out his ear.
I want people to understand the things that they don't hear, and people that aren't inside the ecosystem don't realize that this is its own entity. It's its own beast, right? It's its own group of people. Its own. How big of a part do you think that plays? How deep do you think you have to get inside the groups in the mass of racers, or other friends that are tweeting or sharing, or you know what I mean?
I mean, I think at the level of the top 3 series, I think it's pretty big. I mean, because you even see you see all these people that kind of bounce from ride to ride, even in the smaller teams.
Right.
You know, I mean, that they know somebody at each team. You know, they can figure out ways to make the deals happen. I think so. It's even harder to, and and the people that work on those teams laugh at me.
Sure.
You know, they think I'm an idiot.
Right. Sure. 100%. That's why I wanted to say it. Right.
You know what I mean? So and it's on such a different level that. You know, I mean, those people think, like, why would you race a late model when you could go race an Xfinity car and, you know, run last and put 40-lap old tires on pit stops? You know, I mean, I don't know. It's just, I mean, you're right. It is different. I mean, but once you get, I feel like that's why it's just hard to bounce back and forth between the two. I mean, kind of once you get in that system.
You got to be in that system.
You got to, I mean, that's, and it works. I mean, you see people, you know, I mean, like Corey LaJoie, I mean, he's went from, you know, the worst ride, and he's steadily made opportunities for himself, and along the way met and developed partners that have helped do that. You know, I mean, that's his grind. That's what he wants to do. You know, he didn't want to race. I mean, he could have raced late models for 10 years, but you know, that's not what he did. So.
And he busted his butt, didn't pay no money. I mean, he went out and talked to people and made it happen too. You know.
Right. So. Bouncing away from the serious for a moment, Randy Weaver wants to know.
Oh, come on.
Who started to come on phrase? You or Herm?
Okay, I did read that comment. Who is Herm?
Herman Jr., I guess.
I never talked to him.
Herm I know.
I have no idea.
I didn't understand
I would have
it
assumed it was Kenny Wallace. I don't know.
I don't know. I don't know. I think,
read that, and I didn't know
I
what
remember,
it was.
It's Randy Weaver. What do you expect?
Yeah. I don't
Guy's
really
a legend.
remember it.
Yeah, he is a legend in his own mind.
I remember it coming about some in the time when he was working with Daniel at Kingsport. I think, you know, I think every now and then we would show up and watch Daniel and hang out with Randy, and I guess that's how he took it over. I don't know. I remember at Junior Motorsports for the longest time when I worked in the Xfinity shop, everyone said that, and everything was related to big time auto racing. So I think those two he kind of took on, and then he took it to Tennessee, and that was fresh content over there, I
guess. Fresh content. Anything's fresh content over there. You mentioned Martinsville earlier, so let's dive in there. My first question is, you know, first off, you know, I appreciate you untagging yourself, you know, from that post about, you know, becoming a villain, but, you know.
Yeah.
Anyways.
Well, and I think a lot of times you tag my personal one.
Yeah.
Man, I get like 50 friend requests right away.
I get confused. It's my fault. I get confused. It's me.
I know I mean, somebody probably thinks I'm a real asshole for saying that, but. I mean,
I know what you mean.
Well, I mean, but you don't necessarily want to be Facebook friends with all of those people. You know what I mean? That's not what you're on there to do. But anyways, as far as being a villain, do you see yourself in that way? Do you see what other people see?
I don't know. So, I mean, honestly, I don't think so. I think a lot of people think, you know, that I'm some spoiled kid that has my late model stored in Junior Motorsports' Xfinity shop, and all they work on it, and I don't really do nothing. And
a lot of people really do believe that.
There's ferries floating around working on it and everything. You know?
Like, I mean, I don't
bubbles coming out the doors.
And I have an unlimited budget, and you know, so I think there's part of that. I mean, I remember the article you're referring to. I mean, I probably have gotten more outspoken over the last few years, especially with all the rule stuff, because I mean, you just try to. You know, you try to give advice, you know, and it just sometimes it comes out the wrong way, and sometimes, you know, make some people mad in doing that. But I mean, in the end, I'm just trying to do what's best for the sport and what I think is best for the sport.
Do you feel like it's important for you to be outspoken? I mean, you are. I mean, if we put them in a category, you, Phillip, and Lee are the top 3 late model stock car drivers. Period. There is nobody else that fits into that list. So. Would you say that you need to be outspoken?
I mean, I think so. I mean, I think it helps getting an opinion out there. I don't think it's necessarily a negative thing. I mean, I don't think any of us, you know, if us 3 were out talking, I don't think any of us would have the wrong, you know, I mean, I don't think the motive would be anything other than helping the sport.
Right.
I mean, I've seen things from. I mean, like I said, even though that we're a bigger team and you know we have funding, and I know that I'm fortunate to work for. On our late models and all that stuff. I mean, it's still you see a lot of things from that perspective that make you see things a little different.
See, but that's what I think is great, to be real honest with you, because he's got so many restraints that he has to fight. He can't get. I guess you could do whatever you want to, but on social media, when he leaves here, he's not F-bombing everybody from everywhere, because I'm pretty for sure when he gets to the shop, his seats will be outside.
Yeah.
So I think that's what people misinterpret. I don't think they understand that even if they're villainizing you, to use Langley's terms, even if they're villainizing you, I don't think they understand the restraints that you're stuck under, because you can't pull a Corey at 2 in the morning and say something terrible on social media.
I've seen him pissed off.
I'm not saying that. I'm not saying that.
I talk to him all the time.
I'm not saying that. But what I'm saying is he can't openly. He has to constructively criticize with doing it, and I think that's maybe something that Philip or Lee doesn't have to do, because at the end of the day, when they go home, their cars are out back, and nobody's going to tell them.
But they still are businessmen, and they still got stuff to do.
Don't disagree, and I'm not putting either one of them down. I'm just saying that's another burden that comes along with this deal that you're in.
I mean, just everything related to the money side of it, and with the motors and all that. I mean, I just look at it. I mean, like I said, I've done this long enough, and really, I'm fortunate to still be able to do this without bringing my own funding, my dad's money, basically, to it. That I mean, I want to see the sport stay, the cost of it stay somewhat reasonable. I mean, I don't want to see it go crazy, and I mean, it just seems like the last couple of years have just been kind of out of control with it. I mean, so I'm looking at it from the side of not what's best for me or junior motorsports, or just what's best for it in general. I mean, I don't think, I mean,
you're 50 years old, you'd still like to go to Hickory and see late models running on the track. There's people still racing here.
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, that's it.
And in the direction they have been going, that's probably not going to happen. I mean, there's probably not going to be late models, right? I mean, if you look at dirt racing, I mean, like with Raceway, they just basically did away with their late models because the cost had got out of control. So they have a few races, I don't know, 4 or 5 a year with them, and that's it. And that is the direction in which we have been heading. And I think it's good that you've been outspoken. I know you were outspoken against the spec motor, from day one, I believe.
Yeah, I mean, the motor part of it, like I said, this is me seeing it from our perspective. I mean, the spec motor for us is not financially reasonable for us to do. And we run 2 teams, we have funding, all that. It does not make sense to run spec motors.
Who does this spec motor help?
I think it helps a guy who already had a built engine. I think.
But are there any of them left? Because 2 years ago you could buy a nice built Clark motor cheap, which were great motors, and I don't mean that badly, but it just drove the price to absolute nothing. And by the time you were done, you still had more in it than what you did the crate motor, and you got less durability. So how did you win? Who actually won there?
I mean,
I'm yet to figure out who.
I don't know how we got to where we got.
That
from where I mean, because if you just think about it all, it's just. I mean, the whole motor thing. I don't even know how we got to where
we got there because it was the wild, wild west.
I mean,
there was literally nobody at the top governing.
I agree with you.
That's what it was.
I mean,
but we still have that.
Sorta. The tracks have at least got themselves together and said, okay, we're going to make decisions. Even if we do something a little different, we're going to collectively try to make decisions. And that's what they do when they have their operators meeting.
Why don't you go ahead? We had a little bit of that discussion earlier on in the office. Why don't you go ahead with that?
I don't know.
Langley put it all out there. Nobody's talked about jack nothing in 4 or 5 years about the rule thing. We got people that's over NASCAR just because they went and raised their hand and said, hey, I'm going to do this, and all y'all listen to me. And I've said that before. And then they had this rules meeting, and they talked about pretty much about nothing. And well, I don't know. Why don't you talk about it, Roger?
I think, in fairness, the first rules meeting they had was extremely productive.
Yeah,
I mean, they got the ducks in the right row.
Sure.
There.
Yeah. And then what happened?
And then I think this year's was not productive based on
because
the 3-track promotion.
In my opinion, nobody will stand up. And I'll say it. I'll say it. Nobody will stand up because what happens is when we get in these small groups and everybody agrees with each other, nobody wants to say anything bad, and I'm happy.
Because everybody's right.
We're glad-handing everybody and kissing babies like this is some promotional deal. Yeah. And then we all leave, and by the time everybody gets home, all the rules are different again. Now, Billy's got one spring, and Johnny's letting another. What just happened?
Yeah.
Like I said, I don't know. I mean,
I'm not dogging the
I mean, you had
tracks.
the
I
crate,
just would like to
you
know
have
how.
the Ford crate come in, and then you have the spec. Well, then the spec outdoes the Ford crate, and then the Harrington's kind of sliding in there, coming in. And I mean, and the problem that happened with it was that the rules just weren't defined clearly enough. I feel like.
Yeah.
I mean, it just
that's
wasn't,
exactly what happened to the Harrington.
I mean, that's really what happened. I think Chris's intentions were in the right place.
They were, I think, 100% pure.
Yeah,
100%
and
pure.
the rules weren't clearly defined enough that where some other people pushed envelopes and then it goes past, and then the other time the intake that the spec just got back, that was on it originally. Everybody's kind of forgot that.
Right.
So so think about that if you do a chart of horsepower where that comes in versus what we had 3 years ago.
Yeah.
But so really. I mean, like I said, I don't know how you got to where you had. I mean, my thought the whole time has just been, I just don't feel like that late model stock racing needs a $28,000 motor. That needs rebuilt 1,500 every 1,500 to 2,000 laps, and the way I see it, you need at least 2 or 3 of them because they take so long to get rebuilt, and every time you send them back, they're 10 or 12,000, and on top of that. We're basing, like Martinsville, for example, since we're trying to head that direction.
Sure. We ain't got there yet.
But I'm not going to name names, but, car A ran right with me in the straightaway, and he had a spec motor in. And then car B, I yanked him 2 car lengths. So which spec motor are you basing the rules off of? Right. I mean, because there's just such a wide range that you can do on those motors that really, I feel like, in that particular package, you almost need 2 setup. You need one setup to run a Martinsville straightaway, and then you need one to run a Langley straightaway.
Let's be clear. When you say $28,000 motor, which engine are you referring to?
The spec motor.
So
I believe. I mean, I feel like
have you priced it to know that?
I mean, not directly because it's not an option that that we've looked at. But I mean, I believe that it can quickly get to that point. Yeah.
Interesting, because there's a whole lot of other numbers.
And like I said, somebody might comment and say that's not true. That's not true.
There will be. All the specs supporters.
But wait a minute, hold on.
I'm just
not to completely.
It's like I said, for us with our team, we run 2 cars. We run 20 races a year with 2 cars. It does not make sense for us to have those motors, and we're Junior Motorsports. So how does it make sense for the? I don't understand. I don't.
Right.
That's just where I'm at with it. I mean, I just don't. I don't see it.
But the Harrington will all the crates will get out of control here again soon too. Because it's already happening. It's already happening that people are taking motors and having punched as big as they can punch them, and we're going to use the blocks for X amount of races. And we're victims of our own circumstance.
Sure.
I understand. But I just don't see how we expect a customer, meaning a customer of mine, a customer of racetracks, a person that wants to race, how we tell them, you got to spend $65,000 without a truck, without a trailer, without one single tool, you got a car with a battery, a motor, you have no spare anything. How do we tell them this is where you start? I think you're in trouble.
Yeah.
The cost of entry is too high.
I mean, like, for example, again, using us as an example, I mean, when we went to go run Hickory in 2014, we ran the full season. And we ran the whole season on one 604 crate motor, and we put valve springs in it another time. And then if you look at the end of that year versus the year prior, in which we have built motors, and we never went above and beyond with getting them rebuilt. I mean, we pushed them probably too far. And, I mean, just you look at the numbers, it's just not even in – I mean, so then you got 15, and it's like, okay, well, we need to get these built motors redone. And then they're looking at us saying, well, why would we do that when we can just run our crate motors at Hickory?
Right.
But so many people just have the complete opposite look as what I do there.
So do you think they're going in the wrong direction by getting rid of the 604? Because it's gone at the end of this year.
No, because it's already gone,
right.
Really. I mean, it's too late now. I mean, I think the Enforcer is a good, I mean, price-wise, I mean, it's more power and it's more affordable. So, I mean, I think it's a good compromise between the two. But, I mean, I think eventually the 6 going to –
I brought it up at Myrtle Beach and got body slammed for it, but I think you should have Harrington and you should have Robert and Charlie Long, and they should be their engine. It comes from them, sealed. They're responsible for the parts in it with the Ford. Now you have 2 independent guys, both good at their crafts. You have a Chevrolet guy. You have a Ford guy. You've given them both equal footing. They're both top-notch businesses that have high integrity, and I think that's one of the ways the Super has been so effective. The Super was successful because you put the bond up, and if your stuff was wrong, you were wrong. So it kept the motor deal at least a little bit under control because the guy building it had some stake in what was happening. Yeah. And he didn't want to give up, so there was accountability. But once that motor leaves Robert and Charlie's or Harrington's, God knows what you got then.
Well, I mean, that's what happened with the Harrington engine.
100%.
I mean, it was, what, $10,500? I mean, is that what it was?
I don't remember. What does it bill from him? I thought it was more than that, completely done from him.
Now it is because they had, tariffs and all that other crap.
Right.
And it drove the
I
price
mean,
up.
I think I would say 15. I think that's not being, too, I mean, and I think 15,000 is being, I think.
I just like it because it's durable. I mean, it's just durable. He had a couple problems, the Chevrolet Harringtons. He had a couple problems with some fuel pumps or whatever, but that thing is pretty good.
I mean, it's been, I don't know, like I said, and even that about the engine builders, I don't know how you can necessarily cut all the others out.
No, for sure.
I mean, because there's so many out there.
100%.
I don't have an answer. I mean, hopefully where they're at right now is equal and everybody's happy and we can stop messing with them for about 10 years.
Yeah.
But I don't know if that'll happen. So we never really talked about Martinsville. So
well,
let's
do it.
Let's fix it.
I figured we might as well go
do
there.
it.
Yeah, let's go ahead and get to Martinsville. Man, dominated the race, obviously. You've had a lot of time to think at it, look back at video, I'm sure. Mm-hmm. What's your take on everything that transpired from your end?
I mean, the race itself and just the practice and qualifying and the event, I mean, it was about as well. I mean, it's out of control, I think would be the best way to describe it. I mean, just all the rules and nobody knew what was going on and that part. But by the time we actually made it to the race, I mean, we had a phenomenal car. I mean, by far. I mean, I haven't even really we've struggled there a lot and we had a great car. And I mean, basically you just fast forward to the 3 to go or whatever, that the restart where Peyton gets the lead. And I mean, I feel like everybody has remembered, the deal with Corey, but really
they forget about that.
They forget what happened first. Yeah. I mean, which I had never seen anything like that before in my life.
Tommy Lemons told me that actually happened. I believe he told me that has happened twice that he knows of. Previously, I believe he told me, and if I get this wrong, he will tell me, I'm sure. But I believe he told me that's how he got the outside pole to get the win against Dylan Bassett. Was the scoring caution before they actually scored him second when he wasn't in second.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure there's been plenty of issues with scoring there before. I mean, but I mean, like I said, and honestly, I don't really know. I mean, it caught us all off guard. I mean, and it was so close that we had no idea. But I mean, for the guys after that, I mean, ask CE. I mean, CE knew the deal when he lined up on that last restart. He knew, come hell or high water, he was going to get to that start-finish line first. So by the time that they put me to second and everyone knew what was going on, then shame on them for not being the first one to the line. That's all. I mean, that's the way I see it.
Absolutely. I mean, that was a good move by him.
You knew the deal, right? I mean, you knew how it was going to be. I mean, after that. After the restart that I got put to second, I mean, I knew on that next one, I mean, I wasn't going to be second at the line.
The rules were established at that point.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah,
for sure.
The one you're talking about, Tommy's talking about, Dennis Setzer should have been second.
Yes.
Because he was pissed.
Oh, yeah, I
Dennis
remember.
And you don't see Dennis mad.
No.
He was not happy.
I mean, and honestly, it probably should have been fixed then, and why we have that crazy rule, I don't have any clue. Martinsville, do you still view the wreck the same way that you viewed it that day?
No, I mean, obviously you don't. The emotion of it. I think I still feel like, as mad as I was still so proud of how well we ran that it kind of took away from it. But I mean, I studied the race. I've studied it. I'm going to take it to my grave. I mean, thinking about that race, and I mean, and looking back on it, I think there never really was a real clear view, but I'd say that it was more than likely probably more racing than I originally said. I mean, I went back and watched every lap that Peyton ran, just about that I could see.
Yeah.
And I mean, he entered way higher, later and higher than.
Well, I mean, that's what happened to him after that.
Yeah. I was just getting ready to say that's exactly what happened to him after that.
In my defense going into that, I was pretty sure that he was going to use me up. So I mean, I can either enter in the marbles and wait till he uses me up, or I can just race him. And it just happened that we bumped wheels and I got turned around. I mean, I don't think it was intentional on his side. I mean, I think he meant to run into me, but I don't think he meant to spin me out.
Sure.
I mean, and then I'd say from that point on, I mean, in races, especially big races like that, it's like everybody's kind of getting along, and it's like the first move like that happens, then it's on, and then it's like everybody, as soon as they saw me get turned around out of the lead, I think everybody saw blood, and then that was what you
really
had.
did.
Yeah,
no doubt about it.
And I mean, from then on, I mean, that was, like I said, it was, I don't even remember really well what happened after that.
Yeah, I mean, and honestly, everybody wants to dog Lane Riggs for what he did. Lane made one mistake. It wasn't diving down there. It's that he let up.
Yeah.
He let up and he should have hit him in the left front there, and he'd been
I
fine.
saw,
and
he tried backing out of it and got hit from behind.
Yep.
And then that made it because
but he was way too committed at that point.
whoever was fifth was saying, "Oh, he's going in. I'm going in there too."
Exactly.
All of them out of the way.
Yeah.
So, I mean,
I think it was Phillip behind him, wasn't it?
I think it
so.
just all boils down to having a caution with 20 to go and bunching everybody up and kind of.
Do you really think that matters? I mean, do you really not think that cautions are going to fall late in that race anyway?
I don't know. I just feel like you're always just going to look back on that. I mean, more than likely there's going to be a caution probably, but at least if there is, then at least you know that it was a.
I always thought 50 to go and you get a little strung out, and then you got your fast cars up there, and you got a little more respect for each other when you're not on top of each other.
It was 10 to go, and then it went to
the 25.
Then it went from 10,
and
then it went to 50, and then now it's like 30, 20, 10. And we're going to be right back.
10 laps was not a good idea.
Well, 10 laps was a great idea when they didn't count caution laps, and that's what I think. If they did that now, if they did 20 to go and didn't count caution laps, it would make a total difference in that.
Yeah, it was dark one time we were there.
Yes.
Oh, I know.
It was
very
completely dark.
Jason York's victory lane was
dark.
completely black.
Yes.
Completely.
So
was Tommy Lemons.
Unical 76, they was lighting up the whole track.
Dark too.
Yeah, it was really dark.
Well, I think, and then you can very easily get rid of the whole restart, because caution laps don't count, then whoever's the leader's the leader. I mean,
they can get rid of that without not counting caution laps.
Is that, and even the Cup Series has been through this. I mean, if you have a restart box, then you don't have any of this trouble, but nobody seems to believe that.
Right.
I mean, you say, here's point A, here's point B. The leader starts the race. He can start.
Once again, there's something that works. Let's do it.
Right.
Yeah. The leader can start in between point A and point B, and by the time he gets to point B, if he hasn't gone, then it's game on.
Right.
But at least you have some sort of advantage of being the leader. I mean, at Martinsville, it's just it's just a game back and forth of who's jumping more.
Yeah.
Sure.
I mean,
traditionally, that's how it's come down to who's won what.
Pretty much.
I mean, that's it. You got to be right close to the end and hope that everybody else augers in. I mean, that's it.
I mean,
that's what happens.
C said it best when he said it's like winning the lottery.
It is.
Yeah, it is.
And I learned that, I mean, because over the course of the years, I always ran pretty much so bad there that I never, I always excused my performance. Well, this year I kind of got a reality of what it's like to dominate the race and lose it right at the end.
Yeah,
but
definitely dominated.
It's almost like Bowman Gray, though, if you think about it, right? I know you're the big Bowman Gray, and we've been talking about that some. But think about that. Think about it. You don't go to Bowman Gray. I'm not saying that you don't know who's going to win. Like, I've been over there.
Well, I don't know.
And I think
the funny thing is they draw for positions all the time, but everybody says they just regular. But the same people win all the time.
Right. Well,
for real.
For the last 15 years,
right.
Burt Myers and Tim Brown have been the only two people to win a championship for like 15, 20 years, other than scattered out through and here. Derek Stoltz starting to dead back.
A.J. Sanders. He
wins 40 races a year. I mean,
come out of left field with that one, yeah. Nice, yeah.
For real.
Well done. You're right.
But I mean, yeah, you don't never know though. You really don't.
You just don't. Like, I love the in-car from that place because you don't ever know, right? Like, you don't know, is this guy going to make it through this corner or is he going to – I will always stop on in-car from Bowman Gray.
Something I've given them credit – we used to – the crazy hitting each other head on.
Yeah.
In the past 4 or 5 years, we've realized, damn, these cars cost a lot of money. Because the ones at Bowman Gray, they're not like they were in 1980 in some piece of junk looking street stock.
Yeah.
They're a full-blown late model. You know what I mean? I mean, they're nice. There's some nice rides over there, and they don't kill each other.
And they can get all their parts to fix it here, right?
Yeah, we have a lot of them guys.
I used to come here every week.
I appreciate them guys over there. Them guys, they grind over there. They're not spending millions and millions. I mean, it's gotten bigger to where, I think Jerry Hunt, then he's pumped some money into a bunch of those things where they got, big trucks and trailers and things. But over there ain't no room to put all that big stuff. So I find it intriguing that they try to keep it on the cheap still. They have the money.
Well, everybody said that's the cheapest place you can race. It is by,
But what's amazing to me is, Tommy Neal told me this too.
Plus, there's no rules, so you don't really have to do nothing.
Yeah, but it's the cheapest place you can race.
Yeah.
But yet, he said it's also, and I found this profound, he said it's also the #1 place that he can get sponsorship for.
Yeah.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
And I think to myself,
Mike Robertson had to turn people away because he had no room left on his car. I've never heard such a thing.
Right.
Sure. What about you racing, Bowman Gray?
We could do it one time.
I don't know about that.
I know somebody's got 2 or 3
I mean,
cars.
if we could get you in a ride, would you go and drive?
I don't know, man. I think I'd much rather watch.
Yeah. I like to watch there.
I mean, I'd say that you're spot on. I mean, I think it's a grind there. I mean, they race back to back to back to back to back. So, I mean, those guys that are racing, and most of the time their bodies are tore off. And I mean, I know what it takes to fix them. So, I mean, I know it's a lot of work.
Right.
That they're putting in. So, it's
going back to Martinsville. We talked about how chaotic the race weekend was. What do you think they got to do to try to fix that? What do you think they got to do to get, rules? How do they get them in line before we get there and everything else?
Really, really, really simple. I think it's January 21st. You printed this rule book that's coming out.
Yeah.
Some bulletins come out last week. There's your rule book. It's got weights in it. It's got motors in it. It's got carburetors in it. You have between now and October to figure out what motor you want to run. It's real simple. I mean, I think, and then when you get there, when all these people are bitching, how down they are, not say, man, this is the rule book. It come out in January.
Yeah, but wait, I'm gonna show it a little more old school. How about the entry form? Like, as David Gilliland was leaving the track after getting thrown out, he and I started talking. He said, we've both been racing a long, long time. Where else were the rules not printed at any of NASCAR's other series for anything they've ever done? The entry blank determined everything, right? It said the rules that we had to follow when we went to Watkins Glen, or the rules that we had to follow when we went to. So, at what point can we just produce a product that the racer might have more than 2 or 3 days to try to gather parts and prepare for? I think that would make it easier for people to make
it.
And
the Lynn Carrolls that are running these shows, it make their life so much easier.
Right.
I mean,
you don't have to change nothing and worry and do all this.
You can worry about just managing the show and calling the race or whatever.
Funniest thing I thought, there was 2 Fords in the field or something.
This is the rules. I mean, they've been out since January. I mean, this is what we're going by.
There was 2 Fords in the field, and they were junk. Them cars are junk. Matt Light drove from 35th to 5th place.
Yeah.
I was like, well, there's your motors, I mean, come on.
Yeah. And it definitely would make it simpler. Their life would be a whole lot simpler if they could walk in there and just go, did you guys read the rule book?
But in the cook garage, when you got in trouble, that was the deal, right? Did you read the entry blank? Oh, okay. Yeah. You signed down here, and that's it. That's the end. I just don't understand why it's got to be.
Everybody tries to cater to somebody. Somebody cries. Who cares? Tough. There it is. Just like you say, there it is.
I mean, that's the only fix for it.
It is.
I mean, that's really.
You're going to make somebody mad, no matter what.
No matter what, if you try to appease it, then somebody's going to be mad, no matter what.
Well, I think everybody left there mad last year except for one guy. So I mean,
you're right.
I mean, they could probably appease a whole lot more people by just saying, "Here's the rule book," and move on.
I mean, and I think that includes the fans. The fans left not happy.
Oh, the fans were extremely mad
with the product they saw how it finished.
The man that runs the racetrack was not happy.
No, and hopefully we're going to get him on here or on the podcast or something very, very soon. So
we'll send a car for him or something cool.
Yeah. He can fly his helicopter in. Okay,
that's why I said what I said.
Not
my car. I said we'll send a car for him.
Yeah, I understand. Not your
RACE22 will sponsor it.
RACE22 ain't sponsoring anything.
Got that credit card number. Wham!
Oh yeah, I need your American Express.
That thing is gone. I shredded that years ago.
Dang, I wish I'd have kept up with the number. I think that's about all the questions we had for you that I can think of off the top of my head, unless you guys have any more.
I always got questions.
Well, throw them at him.
Well, okay, so we were thinking, me and him were thinking, okay, so our topics, we got motors, we did that, I think, kind of.
Oh, I got one more.
Martinsville went over that, so I guess we got spindles left.
That's exactly what I wanted to ask.
Yeah, we didn't talk about spindles.
What's your thoughts on the spindles? I mean, obviously now they're not legal, but last year, well, Go ahead, tell us.
That rule did not outlaw anything.
It didn't.
It didn't. You know.
I know.
You're in the business.
Well, I know. Somebody said that
the $1,000 Kyle Busch spindles or whatever that you wrote about are still legal. So everybody that's all saying that, this is all for cost savings and all this, just doesn't know what they're talking about, flat out. I'll say that. I mean, that's the best way to really put it.
So explain that. Explain how they're legal.
Because
it says how the rule, can't be one piece. So
it can't be one piece.
So
but
they just make it all and weld it together. I mean, I know it's not good.
You can make it into anything you want, really, right?
But it can't be one piece. So 2 by the rules says it's legal.
Interesting.
Well, the ones that you're referring to that are Kyle Busch ones, that's what I'm using because that's what all the people that type, that's what they read.
Yeah, sure. Right.
So those are actually 3 pieces, if I'm correct. It's the main spindle, the snout welded in.
But to beat the rule, all you got to have
is arm is welded on.
Right, but all you got to have is more than one.
$1,000.
Right? Yeah.
I mean, so so you can still get your $1,000 spindles. I mean, I understand the cost savings part of it, but it didn't outlaw that.
Do you have those?
Yeah.
How long have you run those?
I mean, not as long. Probably we got some around July, probably.
So after you seen them at the Hamlin, or?
So somebody took hours to write that rule, and he just made it look stupid in about 8 seconds.
I mean,
and that's the way I read it. That was essentially what they were trying to eliminate.
I don't even know that about cars, but you just explained like, well,
I mean,
somebody didn't read that real good.
I mean, if it's welded on, I mean, I can take my $1,000 spindle tomorrow, run it through his bandsaw, and re-weld it on there, and it's still a $1,000 spindle.
Right. That's right.
Right?
It's 100% right.
The way I read. I mean,
you said it right.
And I might be
wrong.
I mean, I might be I might be interpreting it different.
No, that's right. And nobody's going to watch.
Everyone's saying
it will conform. The rule will actually change. You watch what happens here. This has happened 2 or 3 times. So we came out with one, and then everybody's going to figure out that we just have to put a bandsaw. They're not even going to cut them. They're just going to take and weld it. Right, so it looks like I cut it, but I didn't.
Right? That's what the junior motorsports camp's already doing over here.
High fives and all sorts of stuff.
I
mean, Ray Charles can see what's going to happen here. This has happened every year.
I saw one particular comment on there that that was saying late model stock doesn't need $1,000 a piece spindles, and I don't disagree with that. But I mean, I don't know what you do about it now. I mean, if you're out there,
Pandora's box.
And you can't. Yeah, I mean,
I don't see how
you.
It's the same way we got to the motor thing. It's just as soon as you open Pandora's box, it's over then. Now you're constantly playing defense. And if you're going to play, they got to play enough defense because we're trying to beat them all the time, let alone if we get a 10-yard head start, we got them. It's over. Right? I mean, it's just not the way that it works.
I mean, that whole deal, I mean, like I said, I agree. If you – and I'm not sure how you could or how you would write a rule that would – eliminate the cost part of that and keep the cost down on it. I wouldn't be opposed to that, but what they wrote did not do that from the way I see it and a lot of other people see it.
Have you asked any officials?
Who do you ask?
Who do you ask?
Fair enough.
I mean,
exactly.
We asked the tour, what the position on it was, and basically they, kind of said that they didn't have a position on it, that they weren't really concerned with it, that they were concerned with the prices of tires and motors and stuff like that. And so, I mean, like I said, I don't really know who you ask. I mean, anybody can tell you. And it's like he was saying earlier, I mean, you still got, I know people right now are calling all these tracks. I mean, right now it's saying, hey, what's your position on the spindle? Are you going to follow the NASCAR rule on it or not? And they're like, oh, well, I don't care. And then this other track over here saying, we're enforcing it. So, I mean, then you're all, like you said, you got everybody
I get
divided.
4 or 5 different calls a day from people at different racetracks, and I feel stupid because you don't know what little thing they have that not every other racetrack has. Well, hey, these guys are, okay, so you try to go through. It's a full-time job just to stay up with the 5 or 6 tracks that our customers race at, what rules they're going to imply, and then once you get down a path and they decide, we decided that wasn't. Now we go completely down another path.
Start all over.
Right, you get super confused as to what it is to where I wish that NASCAR would maybe take a little bit of the Cars Tour approach from the basis of, I think the Cars Tour lets it go and play out organically a little more. They don't try to necessarily handicap all of it where they sit back and say, well, let's see how this goes. And they may catch a hard time for it, but they may not. 90% of the time, NASCAR just copies their rule anyway. So I applaud their fact of, all right, well, we don't know if this is going to be a big deal or not. Let's not start the world on fire. Let's see if this becomes a problem. And then if it does become a problem, we'll address it, as opposed to, we're not doing that. Everybody back. Nope, it just turns people off, I think. And NASCAR just waits. The Cars Tour proves all their stuff for them, and we'll do it now. I mean, what? I thought you were the leading sanctioning body, and I'm not here to completely bash them. I just don't understand. My cars will never get through tech ever again anywhere, any racetrack, I'm sure. But
I mean, so that's a question. So that reminds me of two things. So one, I didn't understand after all this stuff at Martinsville, why did they not take motors after the race and go dyno them? You don't have to tear the guy's motor to a million pieces, so he's got to pay to put it back together.
It's too late.
Take it. Well, I know it's too late.
Everybody had to go home.
So with all this stuff,
right.
Made
a bunch of rules because they were all so
check
different.
anything at Martinsville?
I don't know.
I mean, because we were sitting in there. We were sitting in there in the media center
Josh Berry
talking.
was not in tech after the race.
Yeah, I understand.
I don't. But
we were sitting in there in the media center, and after about 30 minutes, 40 minutes, whatever.
It was the shortest tech ever, wasn't it?
I said to myself, I better go out here and check and see what's going on.
It was
tech.
done.
You know what I mean? No, they loaded up and gone, man. I'm like, where's everybody at?
Were there for a couple hours.
Yeah, it was weird. It was really weird.
Okay, so my question for you guys is, so I know earlier you asked me, if I felt like the need to be outspoken on certain stuff, because blah blah, what. So do you think the fact of me being outspoken or taking a stance against a rule or a motor or whatever directly affects calls that I get at the racetrack, or goes when I go through tech, or a situation like a Martinsville on a restart like that?
Well, I mean, I don't think that call had anything to do with that, but I do think that a call could go against you based on what. I mean, I think Leap Williams is a great example.
100%.
Leap Williams today is like, the most PC person you'll ever talk to. Like when I call him to interview him, it's like, PC, yeah, man, love you, blah, blah, blah. You know what I mean? And it's they doing a good job. I think it used to be, he just run off at the mouth as soon as you started talking to him. Yeah. And I think he learned that he really couldn't afford to do that, especially with having cars. You're in a different position. You're only driving. So I don't know. I think it could go against you, but I also think that somebody's got to do it.
That's the part that I hate.
I think 10 years ago, maybe more. Now we're all professional. Everything's professional here. Everybody's looking at everything. Where? Not in this room, not ever. But the sports professional, whatever. Everybody's filming something. They're not going to go. 10 years ago, they might get pissed and do something to you. You know what I mean? But I don't think as much now. I don't think.
I think. Yes.
I think
I do.
You saw
but here's what I'm going to tell you.
Our level, I think
I think yes.
Disagree. Yeah.
I think that you will. I think you will get patronized to a point. But what I think is interesting is, I think that's when you made it. Because I think, and I'm not saying made it to where you've ended your career and you're ready to retire and go off and have hundreds of kids. I'm just saying, I think that's when you know that the guy that sucks catches no flack.
No.
Yeah.
He
can say anything.
Nobody talks about the guy finishing 12th.
The guy that sucks.
I mean, like Zach Bruinger, we're not talking about him.
That's
perfect. No Time Motorsports. Perfect. I mean, he's even got the name, right? I just think that, yes, you're going to catch some bad ones. And I think you're going to catch some bad ones for you. But I think
he just used reverse psychology. He won't now because he just said it.
I think that's what he's trying to do. He's trying to make sure they all hear it.
It doesn't matter.
So if it does happen, you're like, see, I told you.
I think you gotta. I think that's the kind of the cross you got to bear in that deal, right? I think the sport needs you to do it.
Do you think it's worth it for you to do that to get?
That's a better question.
I mean, it's hard to say. I think
because from the driver team side,
that is hard to say because you get
it. It's hard to say, and I think the reason why I'm more apt to be more outspoken on it is because realistically, I feel like, if I'm not sure how much longer I'm going to be able to do this.
Sure.
You know what I mean?
Sure.
I mean, realistically,
it's got to a point. Something's got to give. Something's got to give.
I mean, right now, like I said, sponsor doesn't come back next year. Is it time to do something else? You know what I mean? So it's not like I feel like I can be a lifetime late model racer for Junior Motorsports forever. So, I mean, I think 8 years ago, I mean, I'm going to try not to make a peep about anything. Number
Sure.
one, because I don't
Sure.
know.
Keep my head
but
down.
Number two, because I don't want to stir up anything that, but
Yeah.
I think now, I mean, anything that really anybody says, I think has, the right intentions. I think I guess seeing it from the perspective of us and the team, having a team and everything, I think, you just see how much stuff costs a lot of times on paper. I think the Saturday night racer doesn't realize, 100 here, 500 here,
Sure.
But when you see it all, because it's all budgeted. I mean, we know, what I'm saying? I mean, when you see all of it, how much you spend on, how much more expensive it is to run a built motor at Motor Mile versus a crate motor at Hickory, or vice versa. I mean, that's when you see. I mean, you see the stuff, and I don't see how others don't see the same thing. But
I don't
mean,
see how
they
people
probably would have their own reason.
spending money doesn't equivalent to time. That's the thing I can't figure out. I can't figure out how people would rather spend $1,000 more on spindles than know that their kid with 2 sets of tires got 165 or 250 or 4,000 more laps. So they don't equivalent the money to the time. It drives me absolutely crazy. Because you get a dad that comes in that's like, here's this suitcase of money. What do I need to do now? And you're like, I just started telling him. I took kind of a Greg Marlowe play. What you need now is to go run about 12 million laps over there and spend about 3 years getting your butt kicked, and then you can come back and actually compete. But until then, it's great that a lot of these young guys get in there and dominate. But what kills me is when they start to run out of money, now all of a sudden money becomes important because now they're trying to prolong their time.
Sure. But let's be honest. What young guys jumping in there and dominating?
They're not.
It's not happening anymore.
Yeah, I don't see it.
But that's some of it is my opinion of why people quit so quick too.
Sure.
Because they don't just come into it and spend as much as Junior Motorsports is spending, or you can buy 15 dudes and have a 48-foot tractor trailer out there and do all this crazy stuff and still go get your butt kicked.
Yeah.
It's the time that you put in to grind and through it. So why does everybody want to pay more, which means they can actually race less? That's the thing I can't figure out. To where if we curbed it to where we spent less and raced more, the whole sport would continually try to grow. But that's not the memo. And I'd like to raise my chassis to $100,000 too. But
well, everybody already says it's the chassis guys anyway, since it's making all the money.
Yeah,
So.
yeah, right. Steel went up 33%. We raised the price $200. Good. It was a big move. Big move. We made big things happen there.
Yeah, I agree with you totally, though, on the cost. It's got to be reined in at some point or another. I mean, and I think we are on a path to trying to get it reined in. Yeah. But I do think that if the spec motor is 28,000 or just whatever the number is, that much more than the Harrington or the Ford, then we either need to figure out how to get it back down and make the same horsepower, or it needs to be eliminated. And I do think that will be eliminated at some point or another, because if I'm not mistaken, Cars has an agreement with Harrington not to change anything, and they have an agreement with Ford not to change anything. Well, there's nobody to talk to over the spec motor. They can't go to that guy and say, because it is no guy, it's just all kinds of people. So I think that's one thing that I think could help a whole lot.
If nothing else comes out of this, I'd like to just establish who the racer talks to. I would like to know who, at the end of the day, anybody can jump in the comments, NASCAR can jump in the comments. Who does the racer actually call when they have questions? That's what right, me, yeah. And I'm just going to end up looking like the bad guy at the end, which is fine.
At the end of the day, that sounds like the dumbest thing ever, though. This big-time thing we have here, and we don't know what's going on with it
and you know
at all.
What's interesting is all the people that are inside the machine think it's terrible, and all the people on the outside just wish they were in the machine. How can we not get them to do it more? How can we not get NASCAR to want to bring those people into it? Because they don't. They can't even tell us that are in the machine, spending the money, spending your own dollars, your own time. You can't even give me an answer. How do you remotely think that you're going to get to the 14-year-old kid in Michigan that his dad loves racing and his family loves racing and they want to race? Where do we bridge that gap? Because there's nobody to even talk to.
If you were going to run the Triple Crown, who would you talk? Would you have to call each racetrack's tech guy individually to discuss what the rules,
Shane Law,
how things are going to work.
Shane Law is the only person I know.
Like, yeah.
I mean, that's Langley Speedway, but I don't think.
Well, I thought he's over everything.
No, I don't think.
I
so.
mean,
maybe I don't know.
I mean, I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I think we went through that a lot before we started running the Cars Tour. You know, we spent the first half of, I think, 2015 maybe. I don't know, the years all run together, I guess now. But one year we kind of spent, and we were kind of bouncing between Hickory and Greenville and Motor Mile. And I mean, every week you were still, what can just trying to make sure you know what. And it only got worse from there. So I mean, you would have to. But I will say that it does seem like lately, at least, everybody seems to be getting more on the same page.
I agree.
The gap's
4 years
closing.
ago. Yeah, I mean, everybody seems to be. Now you're just. I mean, motors and weights and carburetors and spacer plates and stuff like that. I think are the stuff that you can. Because I mean, it wasn't not too long ago somebody qualified on the front row at Martinsville and had a spacer plate on by accident. I think, right?
Was that Jeff Oakley?
Yes.
Jeff Oakley.
Yes, I think it was.
Yeah.
But you can't convince me that they put that spacer plate on there thinking like, man, I hope we get this one by. I mean, it was probably an honest mistake because they just probably didn't know the rules.
I mean,
hey, wait a minute. Didn't that happen at Old Dominion?
Yeah.
Never mind.
Yeah.
I'm not commenting on that one. Going back to the spindle thing. Brian Reedy chimed in. I'm assuming this is about spindles. Said, if outlawed, it should have been across the board. Not this brand is okay, but not this one. I'm referring to there. But
I think I don't want to get into brands. I don't want to. I don't want to call into people out. But more or less, what he's saying is correct. There's a spindle out there that has the steering arm billet CNC'd into it. And then you have one that's welded on. Now, you can argue if that's even really that big of a deal. But when I say that really to make, one spindle legal based on their rules, I would have to cut it in his span saw and weld it back on. And then it's still a $1,000 spindle. I mean, I thought the rule was related to cost. And really, it doesn't seem like it was.
Well, take that a little bit further for us. I know you don't want to really call anybody out, but, what spindle do you think was outlawed?
I mean, it was the one that everyone's calling one piece, but it's actually two pieces because it's a spindle with a steering arm and then a snout welded in it.
Okay. I mean, I don't know who builds spindles. I don't know. That's above
right
my
now.
pay
Everybody
grade.
does.
Yeah, I mean, anybody with a CNC machine, I guess,
yeah,
can do them.
right now, everybody.
Just,
you got a CNC machine, you're on it.
Yeah, I mean it.
We're still building them the old way here.
Gotcha. James Benfield chimed in, and he said, a sponsor and car owner controls the driver's mouth. If not, they will find one who does.
For sure.
And you're probably right.
Listen,
of course,
trace it back
Junior's
to the money.
fairly outspoken, especially now that he's not in a car.
Yeah, but he's a racer.
Extremely outspoken.
But he's a racer, that's why.
Yeah.
Have you, I'm assuming not, but have you caught any flack, from that side of you being outspoken?
No, I don't think so. I mean, I'm not sure.
I mean, you really haven't went
some stuff.
yeah, crazy or nothing.
I don't think I've went bananas. I mean,
Troy McCarty chimed in talking about the spindles. He said that
oh God.
There are rules on angles, so it don't matter if it's one piece or 20.
Okay.
I don't really know. That's above the spindle conversation is above my pay grade, so I'm depending
that
on you
one was
to.
above my head.
Yeah.
Got you. So Troy, maybe chime back in.
I mean, to me, it's not really about one piece or two piece. I thought the whole thing was about cost, and we didn't do that. That's all I'm really getting at. I'm not really trying to shame.
You don't care if it's 2.
Yeah, you don't care if one's an advantage or doing this or whatever.
You can still go buy them. I mean, I can go buy a $2,500 helmet, or I can go buy a $600 helmet, right? I mean,
right.
It doesn't.
So there's really no fix for that. Is what you're saying. There's no way. I mean, is there a way for them to even write that rule to where that spindle would be outlawed? I mean, if you say you can cut it, so how would they write a rule?
We go back old school Cup where we had to have built all that old cast stuff that we had to grind down and try to make lighter. I don't know how those were production spindle of sorts. I don't know beside that how we.
I mean, but at that level, they've already been through all this.
Right. That's what I mean. But that's what I can't figure out. How have we been through this all? But yeah, we don't care about this.
I mean,
they
had those rules.
Right? Like, that's my question again. Yeah, we've been through this. We've done this. We got all the data from all these 5,000 races that have happened. We know what worked, what didn't work. Down here, let's not employ any of those tactics that we learned up here. Let's just continue to do whatever we want to down here and let it run amok. How is that going to win?
I don't know. I'm going back reading some of the comments. Derek Stoltz said that at Motor Mile, people's kids were going to be carrying in 12 packs. and to David Hagan's credit, he did say that he didn't care if everybody coming in had 4 or 6 beers, whatever it fit. I can't remember.
Yeah.
But he didn't care if every one of them had beers in it or if what they had in it. It didn't matter to him. So it was pretty
awesome,
pretty interesting.
Sound like the best sponsors for that facility is DUI lawyers.
I think Doc's drinking again. I think he drinks.
I mean, I agree with Roger on that thing. I just can't see that really. Everybody makes a big deal out of it, but I don't really see how it's going to affect anything. I
just had an old timer tell me one time, and I thought that was pretty interesting. I'm not going to bring up who he is. He's still kind of around, but he says, you know, all these racers think they're one shot click away from winning this race. He's like, there's 5 guys going to win this race. The other 15 got no idea.
Right.
They're not a shot click away. They're not a tire away. They're not a new right rear away. They're not a rent and spring away. They got to work harder to get there. And I think that's the thing that a lot of people miss out, because we do want to talk about how we can buy a $1,000 spindle and put it on Facebook and
I always
Instagram.
told all back in the day, Speedy Fawcett won all the races at Ace. He won 33 late model races in like a 4-year period. And I asked him, I said, how you win all this? He said, my car is 19 years old. He said, on Sunday I'll work on it. Monday I'll work on it. Tuesday I'll work on it. He said, these other guys unload on Thursday and wonder why I'm kicking their butt every week. You know?
Right. That's what I don't understand. That's why I wanted to do this. I wanted, Langley and I talked about this show quite a bit, and the thing I wanted to do is I wanted to eliminate the excuses. I wanted to have guys like him on that do the grind and eat all the garbage that they have to eat to try to continue going where they need to go.
Don't you think there's a lot less now than there was 3 or 4 years ago of these kids just coming in, not touching a car and driving it and leave?
No.
You don't think?
No, I think there's a lot less of those kids coming in, but I don't think there's a lot less of them, not working on the car.
I mean, I think part to add on, like what you're saying with the whole rules is, I mean, 10, 15, 20 years ago, I mean, you didn't have Facebook and Twitter and all this stuff where all these people can read and form opinions on it without really knowing. I mean, your posts are controversial.
They also had a rule book that everybody got, and they read it, and they go, oh, there it is.
Okay, yeah.
Right.
That's exactly what happened. I mean, that's exactly what happened.
Listen, when Greg Marlowe came to work here, I said, our licenses came, and I gave him the rule book. This is no shit. He walked over to the trash can, and I used to carry it all the time. He walked over to the trash can, he looked around, threw it in the garbage, went right back to welding. I was like, all right, so the rules have been set here. This is the way we're going to do this. I don't know that there's a win. I don't know unless the collective group gets together and some people become outspoken and are willing to stand up and say, hey,
somebody takes a lead and does.
And that's why this needs to happen. We need to show people some ways that I think people are making it and other ways that people aren't. And I just don't think enough people get access to guys that have made it, to the Phillips, to the Lees, to the whatever, to be able to realize how hard them dudes go after it all the time. Eat, sleep, how much of their families they give up, how much of their vacations they give up, how much of they live in a smaller home, how much of they're driving a 1984 minivan with no bumper, how much, what they give off.
That's what Langley's dropping
I know.
now.
That's why I said that.
How much they give up to be able to actually get what they get. And then if you do understand that, how are you pissed when a guy gets mad after he put his whole heart, body, soul, life in front of this to make it successful? How do you crap on him when he gets pissed because he feels like something didn't go his way? That's a form of commitment that I think a lot of people don't understand to be successful, that's what it takes.
I think overall, I do think it is heading in a little bit of a more positive direction. I mean, I think in the end, what everybody wants is for them to go by the rule book that they print. And sure, there's plenty of things, like I said, there's plenty of things that you could talk about that are that people let go that aren't in the rule book and blah, blah, blah.
Sure.
But, I mean, and you're not going to fix it overnight.
100%.
But at least if you can give people a direction to work in so you're not just – I mean, it's even like the spindle thing. Let's say even if you wanted to go that route where you just outlaw it completely. Say, look, by 2020, you can't run them anymore.
Right.
So when you wreck one, you should probably –
Right.
I mean, don't go buy another.
Right.
But to your point, how would they do that?
I don't know. I mean, I'm just using that as an example.
I got
don't
you.
think.
Well,
but
I got you.
It's like, I mean, Cars Tour wrote in, and I don't know if NASCAR may have done this as well. Wrote in the rule book that said, the 604 is going to be phased out of competition, and this motor is going to be phased out. Those type of things.
I don't know if NASCAR ever wrote that in there.
I'm not
but
sure
I mean, that is.
There was a press release, I think, or something.
That's been the
Wasn't
biggest
there?
problem last year.
Sure.
They say, "Oh, you can't do this anymore." Well, everybody's like, "Well, crap, I got this."
Right.
Now what the hell am I going to do with it?
I'll tell you what you're going to do. It's going to be at Second Chance. There's a whole graveyard full of stuff down there that was great ideas.
Yeah.
That people have spent. This is the only machine or business that I've ever seen that consumes money as fast as you can shove it in the shredder. If you don't believe it, go to RCR. It's the truth, right? They're just throwing pallets of it in the shredder. For what? Right? Like, at some point, if we can curb it to where it's marginally, like you can flare your fenders out an extra 2 inches. I don't know. Let's come up with some way that doesn't just torture everybody to death and cost. Because we're running the middle out. We're completely running the middle out.
Yeah.
Talking about spindles, Adrian Hodges chimed in, said spindles aren't winning races. It's who's in between the seat and the steering that's winning races. Spindles are just a small piece of a big puzzle. And of course he's right. I mean, there's no doubt. But everything, and I'm not against or for the spindles. I'm not smart enough to know anything about them. I don't actually. If you showed me one, I wouldn't know what the hell it was. But at the end of the day, I'm just for whatever saves us.
Yeah,
period.
Sure.
As a whole, for late model stock car, because that's all I really care about. Late model stock car racing. What saves us? If it saves the drivers money, if it gets more fans in the stand, that's all I care about. So I mean that's, and ultimately, I mean if the spindles don't matter, then we don't need to be writing a rule for them. You know what I mean? We don't read, especially a rule like if you say that it's that convoluted, anyways. That it basically
bigger
does
fish
nothing.
to fry.
Then why would we even write
it?
Did CE have him on?
Do what now?
Did CE have him on? Damn. Shot me down. I was like, I got him here. I thought I maybe I had him on. Sorry.
I mean, maybe we need to start making a list of spindles at the racetrack instead of engines.
Right.
Yeah.
Hey, that would be possible.
Hey, if Kim would do it, I told her one time. I said, here's what I need you to do. I need you to go get every driver's chassis, shocks, whoever built the shocks, the engine builder. I need everything. Okay. I need to know how many stickers is on the side of their car. I want it all. Because, I mean, these fans, and it's not just fans, it's other teams and stuff that'll ask on there. I mean, like, they want to know. I mean, like, I get people, if we go to a race and we don't have a list of engines, we get text messages. Hey, man, do you happen to know who such and such, what engine they have?
Sure.
I mean, like, people really want to know that. I mean, like, it's that important.
That's the second best part of Race Monitor.
Do you care?
That's the second best part of Race Monitor, for real.
It's
the time.
Up with it.
The time is the best.
90% of the time, those are wrong.
I don't care. People still, I'm
just
telling
you know.
People still go nuts about it. Did you see he had? I'm like, nope, he didn't.
I mean, you guys probably know more than any of it. I mean, I remember at the fall brawl at Hickory, you were like, and like I said, I'm not going to name them. They were like, such and such is wearing me out to know if you have a Harrington engine.
Yeah.
I'm like, yes, this is the first time I've ran it at Hickory.
I remember that.
And, I mean, people are ate up with it.
Yeah.
Ate up with it.
Insane, man.
Well, since all this crap's happened,
I mean, it don't matter if it's who's driving it or what car it is or anything. It's just what motor's in that car.
Yeah.
Everybody's just consumed with it lately.
I guess at Martinsville 2 years ago, speaking of engines and, letting them know what it, I guess Lee put the wrong one on the side of his car intentionally. Pulliam, that is. And he got in trouble for it. I don't know exactly what happened. He was telling me about it, and he didn't tell me he may have told me the whole story. I forget things. I don't know. But I just found that interesting that he got in trouble for telling them the wrong.
Well, I mean, a lot of the, even the stuff at Martinsville with all the banter and griping and politicking for the motors. I mean, a lot of those guys that had spec motors, not all of them, a lot of them had Harringtons that they've ran this year.
Yeah.
And I mean, I'll tell you what, and I applaud Philip for doing what he did.
I do too.
Because that's
100%.
exactly what I would have done. If I had them both sitting there, and I really thought that that's what I needed, you can damn sure that me, Matt, and Ryan, and Justin, and Steven, and all that, we're going to be yanking it out and changing it. So how bad do you want it?
That's it.
That was all. I mean, that's how bad do you want it?
I won't mention the driver's name, but after Martinsville, I'm talking to them about their engines and what they had and what they were running. And they run a spec motor. I said, well, why'd you run the spec motor? Because they had told me, this driver had told me beforehand that he thought the Harrington was going to be the best motor at Martinsville. He said, I thought we could get some rule changes. He said, and that's why I run it.
All you had to do was raise your hand.
And I mean, there was plenty of people.
Unless Tommy was in there.
There was more people that raised their hand than had motors. I'm like, what in the world just happened? Like people, don't you want to know what? How do you not see this?
That I never will. That the driver's meeting or one of the meetings, I don't remember. I remember we were sitting there. I think it was the driver's meeting the day of the race. We're sitting there and they're going on, and we're like, we're trying to make a more competitive race, blah, 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 so we're going to add weight and do all this, blah, blah, blah. We're like sitting there, okay, And then they're like, oh, yeah, and during the halfway break, nobody can make any adjustments. Nobody can fix their fenders. Nobody can beat out their doors. Nobody can clear a tire rub. Nobody can adjust their track bar. And me being...
And we got 3 officials.
And I,
nobody touched on that. We got 3 officials.
And I raised my hand and I said, okay, is this... So you're saying that you're trying to make the most competitive race. So you believe that it's going to make a more competitive race if you don't let somebody fix their fender or move their track bar if their car's tight or something. I'm like, and then they were like, oh yeah, everybody can do whatever.
Right.
Yeah. And that was.
There's
and,
a caution.
that's where it went from. It went from one extreme to the absolute other.
That's how rule changes go there.
Yeah.
Everything in the driver's meeting. The worst part of the driver's meeting is when you're sitting in there when they do the one inside the media center.
Yeah.
And we're always in there for it, and we're listening, and they'll say such and such rule, and then somebody will go, and they go, I raised my hand by the way, because y'all can't see me, but they'll go, well, on the entry blank it says X. Oh, well, that's what we're doing then. We're not going to do this. Well, just make up your damn mind and do one thing.
Just let them do whatever. I mean, and that's ended up what they did, and that was the right thing. I mean, we changed the power steering pump at halfway because I had no power steering the first half.
Yeah.
Well, not we.
I could tell by the way the brakes were glowing. You didn't have any power steering.
We had good brakes. They glowed. They glowed, but I had no power steering, and I didn't change it. But I stayed in the car. But I mean, if you can get it in those races, if you can get it changed in 5 minutes, whatever. I mean, you're gonna if somebody changes their carburetor and puts a big carburetor on it, wins the race, they're gonna get thrown out afterwards anyway.
Right.
So what's it matter?
Well, seeing as you come prepared tonight with your own list of topics that you thought we were going to talk about, anything we missed?
I don't think so.
Man, we hit it all. That's pretty good.
Yeah.
I mean, he had to remind us of the spindles.
I'm glad you came. I think this is what we got to do.
I've been thinking on it a little bit. Like I said, I think you guys have the right outlook on it. I mean, it's just, you're trying to make people aware, but not just to create controversy. I mean, it's just to discuss the.
Yeah, I don't really want to create. I think we're going to create our own controversy, not trying.
Oh, there'll be controversy
for sure.
I guarantee you, somebody tomorrow is going to be calling one of these chassis builders, maybe you, maybe a tech director, and they're going to be like, I listened to such and such, and Josh Berry said that those you didn't outlaw.
Exactly.
That's probably already happening right now. They're probably getting text messages.
I guarantee
and all the tech guys, all they hear was one Josh Berry, one Josh Berry.
Yeah,
that's all
and
they heard.
the motor builders are going to be, my motor doesn't cost that much. Josh Berry's a liar. Blah, 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 blah. And they'll all hate me. And
headline: Josh Berry ruined racing.
We already got the first one that said that you were lying about the cost, and that would be Zach Bruinger. I seen he chimed in just a while ago. I think he said he had $25 in his motor or something. He runs like it too. So
we need somebody to be the voice of racing. Why don't we let him do it?
Jesus, something about aunts and uncles, and I don't know.
Planting corn, really. Something I don't know.
Honeysuckles, something.
He didn't bring his mom to hang out, did he?
Oh, Jesus, stop.
Just checking.
Just stop.
There was somebody else. He said.
Just stop. Just stop. Please don't go over that.
And on the next episode.
Gosh, and we do have to about wrap it up here. I mean, we can go as long as we want, but I don't think we should go too long. But man, Josh, you've been actually a really good guest, and we appreciate you coming on with us.
Like you expected?
Yeah,
I actually did pretty good.
That was condescending.
Honestly, no. Honestly, you never know. I mean, like you get a guy in, and I think this setting helps because we're just all kind of laid back.
We've talked to him 3,000 times. He's pretty good.
Sometimes he's full of crap, on Facebook. So I mean, you just never know. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You never know. I mean, I don't mean that in any, way. I just mean that he's been a really good guest. I think that people listening have got a lot of information. I mean, I certainly have.
Who do you want to thank? Right? There's some.
He's
dudes.
already thanked Dale Jr.
Yeah, I don't care about that, right? Like Dale gets thanked enough, but there's always some people that help you grind that nobody ever gets to know about, right? Like Greg Marlowe was influential for me. He really helped me stick to the grind. I've had a lot of guys that have come through here.
Ryan and Matt, nobody knows who the hell they are. So.
Yeah.
So there's some guys. I mean, whether it's the sacrifice your wife puts up with, or your parents, or you know what I mean. They don't get so many of the. Who is there anybody else that you want to thank that just is selfless and doesn't have to? You know what I mean? They just work because they want to, because they believe in your brand and what you're doing.
I mean, really, like you said. I mean, obviously, early in racing, it was my dad.
Sure.
And I don't get to see him as much now because he lives in Tennessee still, and I live here. But he was so. I mean, he did anything he could to just help us race at the level we were racing now.
I think he was on
racing
here.
then, and nowadays, like I said, all our guys. And I do. It's something that I do really take a lot of pride in. And you touched on it, is that we've had the same guys for so long, and that's something that, like I said, we've had people come and go. People decide that they want to do something different or whatever. But for the most part,
the core guys have been the same.
Yeah, I mean, and it's a lot of sacrifice to go do the stuff every weekend, and not. I mean, a lot of them work really good jobs and could make more money on Saturday working.
Doing something else,
at their normal jobs, but instead choose to help me. And I mean, they've told me, when you're done racing, I'm done racing.
Right.
I want to race until we go out. I mean, I take a lot of pride in that. I mean, you see, our group that we've had, you recognize every year, it's like the same people, and even, in our shop and everything, the same people. I mean, I think it's a credit to what we're doing and how we're operating, and I mean, I take a lot of pride in that. What question did they ask?
Zach's chiming in again. He wants to know if you pay for Speed 51. You might want to be careful how you answer this based on the last question you answered about paying for something.
I'm going to say no, and I'm going to say this on if I was you, and I wanted to do that, which I don't necessarily think is crazy.
Yeah.
But you should give the Josh Berry's and Corey Latham's and Roger Johnson's free RACE22 and say, look, man, I'm going to give you this, and just share some stuff on it. Spread it. Like, when I write about you, when I post a video on it, share it. Like, and then I'll say, okay.
I've been with him for 10 years.
I
had Ray Hill to get this damn sweatshirt.
Here we go.
Okay?
That's
my opinion.
You know how much, speaking of, you know how much that shirt cost him? According to his Facebook, $50,000. That's how much that shirt cost.
But you get, I mean,
he ain't seen 50 grand in his entire life. Okay,
Shit.
I'm just saying.
I know what you're saying, though. I agree with what you're saying, though.
No, I do too. I actually like that idea.
Say, hey, look, here's an account. Help me out with it, and I mean, I'm going to share the post-race interview at whatever, and then more than likely, my dad and maybe my uncle or somebody, they're going to get an account, and somebody, I mean, that's how it.
So is that the deal you're on with 51?
No.
Oh, okay.
No, they don't.
Figured I'd ask.
I'm not on any deals.
Just figured I'd ask. I mean, thought it was a good question.
Sure.
So I was actually surprised.
All 2 people still listening cared.
I was actually.
How many people are listening?
I don't know. I can't look at it.
Do you have any?
Was a total of 6.
Don't say it. So just don't say it.
It ain't enough.
Yeah, right. No matter what, it ain't enough.
Yep. But live viewership, if you notice on all these Facebook things, they're not very high unless it's some superstar. I mean, I guess you are. So maybe it's 10,000. I don't know.
Commenter, ain't he? Jeez, Louise.
I don't mean that in racing. I mean like somebody big outside of racing.
It just started last week.
Well, I mean
It just showed up.
He's not no Zach Bruinger or anything, but he's getting there.
That is true.
I mean,
that is true.
Yep.
How many we got on there live? About 80 live.
I would like to see you bring on like a more I guess I'm gonna say more grassroots, somebody that does it themselves and works a real job.
We're gonna.
We're gonna have mini stock drivers and stuff like that.
Get their side of what.
Oh yeah.
Well, I mean just like how you got on there. That's how people are gonna get on. If you want on the show, you need to hit us up.
I feel
That's
like
how we're gonna make it
you asked me because you thought I was full of shit. Kind of. You kind of wanted to see if you're like, all right, here, let's go. Like, and
maybe
I was
that had a little bit to do with
it.
But I mean, you put it out there. I said, well, you know, he asked. Nobody else has asked, you know, except for Nick Payne, you know. But you know, so we just figured you know, we'd put you on here.
Just put a picture of him up, and then he'll look like the bad guy if he don't show up. You know.
No, I did put a picture of him.
I know.
So you know, I mean. All right. Well, I guess
appreciate you coming though.
We didn't get to all of our topics.
Thank you.
We do appreciate you coming.
Really appreciate it.
Been a great guest for sure. Anyways, we're gonna get off here for tonight, and we'll be back. I don't know if we're coming. Are we gonna do this next Monday, or what are we gonna do? I don't know. But we're working on the podcast too, so we're gonna interview some people through it. I've got my home station, you know, set up and ready to go.
I want to do video. We're gonna do video soon.
We got video being shot tonight, and hopefully we're moving in that direction. And like I said, I mean, if you want to be on the show, there's one way to get on the show, and we're not doing calls, so you got to be willing to come here. And you know, Zach, I mean, he sat through all this bull crap tonight, so we might have to get him on the show here soon.
He's buying something.
I didn't throw him under the bus.
They don't buy nothing. They just take it out the back. They don't buy it.
Yeah. Sounds like it's what everybody does.
Right.
Anyways, that'll do it for tonight's RACE22 Radio. Appreciate you guys joining us, and we're out of here.
I must be going. I cannot stay. I came to say I must be going. I'm glad I came, but just the same, I must be going. La la.
For my sake, you must stay. If you should go away, you spoil this party. I am through.
I'll stay a week or two. I'll stay the summer through. But I am telling you, I must be